Hello, friends. It's a very early Wednesday morning here in Los Angeles. Time is 4:15 in the AM, and I would like to live stream because, well, I've gotten quite a bit of work done this evening. Gotten a lot of videos made, and got a lot of work on the channel done, basically. And this is sort of the indulgence at the end of a long night of work. Of course, 7 a.m. on the East Coast, 4 a.m. on the West Coast, and it's Wednesday. So I probably have a limited amount of capacity to attain viewers at this time of day. But regardless, it still feels like an indulgence to me to do live streams. It doesn't require that I think so hard about it being exactly perfect or anything, because the nature of a live stream is such that, hi LJ, 7 a.m. here, getting ready for work. Yeah, well, that makes sense that you would get ready for work at 7 a.m. But yeah, when I do live streams, I think, okay, well, it's a live stream, so I'm going to be responding to people in the chat if anybody shows up. I'm going to be, reading what they say. I'm going to be carrying on about various topics, and people probably evaluate the live streams on a different metric. So while one might normally expect a video to be purposeful and cover a topic in under 20 minutes or so is a standard, somewhere, I think a little over 10 is about the right length for most videos, although it depends. But the nature of live streaming is such that it excuses the free flow directionality of what happens because it's the nature of the medium. So in that regard, I guess the medium is perfectly suited for feeling indulgent to me. As I've gotten more experience making videos and being a YouTuber, I've gotten better at respecting the audience's time and attention and keeping it. So I try to move at a fairly quick clip. Sometimes I move a little too quick. But yeah, I haven't been pumping out a lot of content. I get little bursts of time where I can. I've been more busy than I used to be. But I also want to make sure I pump out content that's worth watching. So it helps to have books to read from that gives a format to any given episode of that. So I got Gospel of Pantheon being read out loud. That one's fun to do, and it's not getting a ton of views, but it's getting more views than nothing. And it's made build up a bit of an audience as I proceed through the book, depending on if people like it or not, I guess, or how much, I don't know how something like that gets popular or not. But regardless, I got the Exciting Tables cognitive function book that I wrote that I'm reading out loud. Hi, Susie. Hi, Florian Bischoff. How are your plans for world domination going? So those things help provide a lot of format. I'm talking about how the settling into certain shows, so to speak, like Gospel of Pantheon, Exciting Tables, Debate Police, Type Police, those things provide a nice format that I can seem a little bit more orderly in what I'm doing, I guess. Did a little revamp on the customization of the channel, putting different things up on the playlist and just change the arrangement of it a little bit. I don't know. Regardless, right now I'm really putting a lot of, I hope, purposeful effort into it. I've always put a lot of effort into it, but mostly at playing. Like, to me, this is kind of playing, but the rest of the work I've done in the last, 8 hours or so has been mostly purposeful. So I want to go through and have each of these shows, quote unquote, that I do, basically have its own kind of thumb and its own theme song. And yeah, that's what I want to do. So, Florian Bischoff, too much procrastination. The most important step to win the close on any argument is a win framework. I guess it depends what kind of argument you're having. Somewhat like if you're trying to convince someone to say stop being obstructionist with you, sometimes you'll run into like some sort of secretary or something in the world who wants to be persnickety about you dotting all your I's and crossing all your T's or something. That kind of argument is frequently best won with just some FE. Hey, I'm happy to go to Starbucks. You want to get you a cup of coffee? That kind of shit will work better than any kind of argument. If you're having an argument like on the internet or with a person or a debate style argument, then I think that the key way to win it is to win framework. But that can be a tricky business. Most people don't explicitly do framework, and most people aren't necessarily familiar with hearing explicit framework arguments. So you have to explain it well. But if you don't win framework, then the other number one debate tip I would say is turn, don't counter. When you are answering a person's argument, don't say, if they go, bananas, we need to spend this money on bananas because they're going to help the health of the nation. Don't go, no, they're not going to help the health of the nation. That's conceding the frame. Go something like, try to turn it if possible. Actually, a recent study shows bananas have this health harm, and these bananas in this other country may not be reliable in terms of the food safety of them or something. People might get salmonella or whatever. So if you want to vote on this ridiculous notion of health impact from the bananas, you're going to vote against them because they actually cause harm, not good. Turning is always better than countering. Countering has a way of conceding frame. So that's the second tip I would give. Right. Well, if someone's really being emotional about it, the argument, and they're not accustomed to using TI kind of determiners in terms of like finishing it or whatever, then you're probably wasting your time. I've banged my head against some FI walls enough times to know that there's some kinds of people that just, you're not going to get anywhere with them. You just fucking drive yourself crazy trying. Okay, I will. That's emotion. Do you feel it? Do you feel the dampness dampening your face? It's not just your face. It's a fine, fine mist. It's enveloping you, dampening your clothes, dampening your face, your hair, taking you away, swishing, whisking you away to San Francisco, the city by the bay, in the midst of a dense fog. Ah, the smell of Fisherman's Wharf. You feel it? That's feelings right there. Those are feelings you're having. You have to present a hard fact against high FI. There's no other way. I tried debating my INFP. You cannot debate INFPs. It's a fucking waste of time. I tried to hammer this INFP Liz into some kind of fucking submission so she would fucking listen to me and work with me to admit when she was wrong and learn some things. But she just couldn't do it. What I've been trying to do is leverage what I'm saying to what I'm seeing is important to them versus the logic points. It works sometimes, not all the time. Unless you're looking for efficacy and outcomes. A lot of times in situations like that, when somebody's being, I consider unreasonable, What I'm really looking to do is to beat them up rhetorically. So, as a natural consequence for their fucking stubborn wrongness, I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying a lot of times what I'm actually trying to do, the outcome I'm trying to get to, is to be able to beat them up rhetorically because I'm mad at them, or I think that they're being stubborn and wrong. I want to punish stubborn wrongness, or they're not answering my question or something like that. Now, I don't know what other outcome you'd get from an argument, like a debate kind of thing, except either, satisfaction of victory, or why do you need them to agree with you? If you need them to agree with you because it's sort of a practical matter, that's another question. But if you want them to understand, well, if you really just start pow, 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 they'll understand not to make those arguments around you anymore. Which is all you really need them to understand. So you're concerned with your own desired outcome to functionally win in a way they too can understand? Well, that's assuming that their benefit is a win for me. Why would I presume that to be the case? I'm not saying it necessarily isn't, but it's not my obligation to teach them. Well, I don't anymore, really. I'm just referencing past examples, some of which occurred before we knew about cognitive functions. Even like debating Liz, I didn't even know about cognitive functions. I just thought, what the fuck is wrong with this person? Why is she so goddamn stubborn? And in that instance, I was trying to help her. I was trying to explain to her the blame and burdens you're attempting to put on your husband are unfair, unreasonable, and representative of a serious problem. She wouldn't listen to me. Right. Exactly, Power Red Bull. And here's the thing about that. And I've talked to Kimberly about this too. Tell me you want Mia because you want it and you just feel like it, and that's it. You don't have any good reasons. Just tell me that. I hate when people try to outsmart me in some way, like go, we should do this. And I go, well, why? And they go, some bullshit reason. But that's bullshit. And I go, why are you negating what I'm saying or something? I'm like, because you told me that was why we should do this thing. That doesn't make any sense at all. And then they go, well, then some other reason. Okay, so but hold on a second. Regarding the first reason you gave, do you agree that doesn't make any sense? And why didn't you give the second reason first if the second reason is your real reason? But regardless if it's a real reason or your real reason, let's evaluate it for legitimacy. Oh, it's more bullshit. That doesn't stand any scrutiny. Oh, and then I eventually realize, I go, oh, you don't know why you want to do this. You just want this. Then just tell me that. Yeah. I see with Kimberly a lot too, even when it's not even anything to do with me. With her brother Ruben. Like we're about ready to have him move along here pretty soon. We've been helping him out, kind of giving him a place to stay and stuff. And he's going to an interview tomorrow, and things are moving along fine. But Kim's getting impatient with it, and so her ideation about that is always along the lines of, here's what Ruben should be doing, rather than, what does she want? We don't need to justify anything, right? It's our house. but she's trying to come up with reasons to be mad or something. Like, well, Ruben should be doing that. Ruben's going to do what Ruben's going to do, and that's not our problem. And it's not an area of it's not an area where we need to try to set terms or something like that, or tell him what to do. We just need to tell him what we're going to do and what our expectations are. Don't worry about him, what he does. Once he knows that information, he'll do with it as he sees fit. But Kimberly wants to justify, I guess, being tired of Ruben being here with reasons that are basically attacks on Ruben that are totally unjustified. It's like, he's not doing anything wrong. He's just not looking like he's scrambling the way you want him to look like he's scrambling. And she's upset about the dog and stuff. It's like, you don't need to justify anything. So stop making justifications. And that is that. And there's ESFP who always wants to go home early, which he can do because he does not work for a boss, yet he always still wants to make up a bullshit reason to do that. If it's winter, he needs to go home early because it's dark. However, it's summer, he wants to go home early because it's summer and the weather's good. My brother's ISTP, but they sort of use it differently. With ISFP, it's an obvious defensive maneuver. And that's that. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I have used up all the ideas I had prepared. Now I'm going to walk away from you. Ask me again in 15 minutes. I'm going to go to my room. I'm going to use my TI for 15 minutes, and then I'll come back and answer your question. Okay, we're done talking. I'm done talking about this now. You lose. The end. No. Right, I wish everyone would do that too. I mean, let's see, that's a fixation on the meanings, right? To say that you like that a lot, that matters in some way to you, that I acknowledge that the vegetarian position has, I think, as far as I'm concerned, wins the ethical argument and wins the argument in general, but I don't need it anyway. So it's like, one way to look at it would be, well, that's the exact example of evil, Eric, where you're fully aware that you ought not do something, but you do it anyway. So why should you be lauded for that in some regard? But the thing is, it depends what you compare it against, right? If you compare it against people who understand what the right thing to do is and do the right thing, it's worse. But if you compare it against people who basically deny narratively the truth so that they can continue to do bad things, I think that that's actually worse. So, that's my take on that. But I mean, one could imagine a person who particularly evaluates or legitimizes somebody else on their ability to take action, or their willingness to follow through, or their consistency with their conclusions in their behavior. Well, then they might think that I'm especially awful, I guess, or something. F-Eyes can easily lie to themselves and know it, while it does not seem TI can lie to themselves while knowing it. That's a really interesting distinction. Fi can lie to itself while knowing it? Huh. I guess it does to me. Malandrix. Hey man, are you aware of split brain experiments that are taking place? Some of them, if you're talking about people who have like epilepsy and they get their hemispheres severed in order to prevent the epileptic seizures. I'm aware of some of them, and the way that perception is split into two hemispheres and stuff. I'm not sure what you're trying to get at with it, so give me a little bit more meat on the bone here. Anetta H. Hello. It's true. Yeah, I'm Anetta H. Hello. It's true. Yeah, I'm Anetta H. It's true, you are Anetta H. I've always thought that. I've had people say they lie to themselves first to be able to lie to others. That's like method acting, you know? They feel like they got to get into the spirit of the character's heart in order to play that role. Whereas FE users are more, I guess, imitative. Is that a word? Imitative or is it imitative? I guess it's imitative, huh? What am I looking for? Oh, I remember what I'm looking for. I wanted to share with a few people here right now, because one of them is Susie, that I just recently, just today, just right now, in fact, I changed the channel trailer to be a very, very special video featuring Susie. And this video came about early on, shortly after I met Susie. And she and I did a very important public service announcement for the nation of Norway. Because, you know, they don't really know how to do anything like this in Norway. So they asked if I could do a tourist promotional video for them. And I asked Susie to do some of the speaking on it. And, you know, for those of you who are here, want to check it out, there it is. If this is a serious, hopefully effective way to get people to go to Norway. I promised the Norwegian king that he'd get him at least 15 people to visit. So please watch it. If you're sold on going to Norway, just go ahead and go. Tell him Eric sent you. Yes, Mangastar. Hey. Hay is for horses. Okay, Susie? Hay is for horses. I think FI persons can't really lie to themselves. They can just lie to other people better than TI people. I have trouble lying for sure. I don't like to lie. It makes me feel very uncomfortable. I do occasionally, but I don't like it. The ISFP lies to himself to make himself feel comfortable. It seems the goal is to keep their inner FI harmony over any cost. I think a healthy FI won't lie to themselves, though. I think that's an unhealthy FI mind. Well, the thing is, you're really grounded for an FI user because you understand the grounding power of the potato. Not all FI users have as many potatoes in their life as you do, and naturally are going to be a little bit more untethered. It's definitely true for an unhealthy of mine, though. I used to lie to myself, but didn't realize. Now I watch for this, so I don't do it. Yeah. You watch for it. You watch for its gleam, its shiny gleam on the skin of your potatoes. Yes, this Max 200 thing is really annoying. Oh yeah, I know. I guess like if you do a bunch of them in a row, then only can wait a second. I've played chat in Poo Cookies live streamed a few times, and I've been told by the chat thing that I'm too verbose, I guess. Sometimes it's easier to lie to yourself and then realize your truth is bullshit. Wait. My truth? Bullshit? Not my truth. Other people's truths, maybe, but not mine. What does Susie think of your slabs theory? It changed her life. Before she learned of the slabs, she was a 76-year-old Eskimo man who had bone cancer from eating so many whales. Now, she's a Norwegian woman in her mid-30s. There are slabs, but how they operate cannot be known. That's true. It can't be known, okay? It can be intuited, sort of, sometimes. You can't really control things, but you can nudge. You can encourage slabs certain directions. You can vogue. Voguing always gets the slab's attention. I have definitely noticed, says Mia Passmore, an FI user method act in order to feel better about lying as it makes the lie seem true to them, giving a sense of right over wrong. Insightful. Observant Mia Passmore. They can be felt, says Florian Bischoff. He's talking about boobs right now. He's imagining his hands on a couple of boobs. I can feel them. Because there's the theory of the bicameral mind, where metaconsciousness is isolated to one hemisphere. I just had the thought of considering it in relation to cognitive functions. I've never heard that metaconsciousness is isolated to one hemisphere. By metaconsciousness, do you mean metacognition? Thinking about thought? Thinking about consciousness? That's what I would assume you mean there. If it is isolated in one hemisphere, that would surprise me, I guess. But I think what we're talking about there, the way I would link to it, now that you mention it, is that would make sense if one hemisphere represented the physical ecosystem and the other the metaphysical ecosystem. So the metaphysical ecosystem could do metacognition. The physical ecosystem wouldn't be able to. And that would make sense. I've never, just a thought that just occurred. Thanks for you bringing that up, but I don't know how one might be able to make predictions based on that hypothesis and then check the existing studies on brain hemispheres and see if they match up with the predicted results. It's theoretically possible. I got to think about it a lot more actually now. That's a good chat message there. It's an interesting notion. Okay, let's see what's next. It can also get painful for the person trying to prove them that they are not right. You can just say prove them wrong. That's fine. Would have made a more rhythmically sound sentence. Not speaking from experience. Okay, I stay away from those types. Trust me. I'm Florian Bischoff. LJ. My husband has FI. He wants to think he's right, even when he knows he's wrong. I've needed to understand the difference between him having a temper tantrum and actually arguing a point. Potatoes are life. Potatoes are life. Are you a male or female? I don't know what kind of voice to give you. I'm going to make you a male to start out with. I think only right in things in INFP truly believes in. At Mangastar. I think only right in things in INFP truly believes in. They have successfully made electronic brainstems in rats. The chip learns the neural connections between the hemispheres, and when the natural one gets cut out, the electronic one functioned as the natural one did. In humans, it could cure Alzheimer's. Matthew Alistair. Is this how to please your lover with a couple easy maneuvers live stream? Female. I like the voice. Okay. Is Kim sleeping? Yeah, Kim's sleeping. Because it's 5:15 in the a.m. That's pretty early in the morning. And Kimberly likes to sleep until 10 or 9 at least, depending on the day. I'm going to have to get up in a second and go pee. I have a pee cup out here in the garage, so I don't have to leave the garage to pee. I just go and empty the cup every couple of urinations. But I am going to have to stand over there briefly to do that, so you don't see my penis when I'm peeing. The display of the penis is considered a community standards violation. It's a community with standards that preclude penises. Eric, want to do some antics this summer? If so, which ones? Susie, you know I'm all about the antics. It's nothing but antics from the moment I get up to the moment I go to bed. You just said Kim does the thing where it seems she makes up a reason afterwards that is not logical at all. How does this behavior relate to her type? Well, remember that knowers want to know first before they approach a given situation or action or course or whatever. And so when they have a clear understanding of what they want to do, it's because they know how things are going to go, what they want to do or not do. But the reason they know how things are going to be is because they remember this one time when it went like that before that went bad and they didn't like it. And that they remember. They may or may not remember other times when it went well, but they'll remember the time that it went badly. And so it's going to go badly this time. But they know that if they just say, well, I remember once before it didn't go well, that's not going to fly as a reason. They still might try to throw it out there first. But then they start coming up with other things to try to be TI sound. When really, she should just tell me, I don't know why. Can you help me come up with a good reason why? I will come up with good reasons for her, no problem. I mean, you could say maybe I should learn to stop asking her why. But it would seem to me that she would want to be able to have some justifications for things. I don't know. I mean, if she wants to convince me of them, she's going to have justifications. She can't just get me to go along with her stupid-ass reason for something. That's just not going to happen. I can barely just sit there in silence even. It's just a struggle to not say. I just go like that. It's a little bit frustrating sometimes, but Kim and I are getting a lot more effective at communicating with each other. I mean, substantially. And within the last couple of weeks, I think we've made a lot of progress. And even prior to that, for the last couple of months, we made good progress too. So, well, it basically boils down to her FE's getting more careful with me a little bit. So she recognizes that certain kinds of things are going to elicit a very lectury response from me or something. And so she tries to cut back on it as much as possible. And concurrently, I recognize that most of the time she does not, when I'm not happy with what she's saying, it's because she doesn't mean what she says. She's saying, she really means something else, but she's saying another thing because she's, not very trusting, I guess. So it's like, if she keeps complaining about the way, let's say, that like Ruben chews or something, what she really means is I don't like that he's still here with no timetable for leaving. But instead of saying that just directly, she starts doing a bunch of other weird shit. It's easier. It's a lot easier to deal with when she's doing it to somebody other than me. Then I can kind of talk her down from it a bit. I mean, her FE maneuverings with me have heretofore, when we've had conflict, been very negative. They've been, she's got the sharpened end of FE out. And what I've been trying to tell her is, look, why don't you try using the carrot sometimes? it's going to work better because I don't respond well to abusive language that is especially, or more importantly, to unfair language. I really don't respond well to unfair language. I don't respond well to people not answering my questions, and I don't respond well to a presumption that I'm the enemy. You know, I really don't respond well to not being allowed to start down a path and do what I'm going to do with it, because I get cut off just as I'm getting started with her knowing in advance where I'm going. I keep telling her, stop fucking knowing. But, she's getting a lot better about it. And I'm getting better at recognizing she is a knower, and she's never going to stop knowing. She just needs to develop some better habits about what to do when she knows and wants to express to me concern about how things are going to go. That there's certain ways she can express that's effective and that I'll take seriously. And there are certain ways she can express that they're going to automatically make me dismiss it and start to fight because I don't like the way she's talking to me. I don't like her justification, or I don't like her avoidance of my questions and stuff like that. So, at that point, the conversation turns from whatever it is we were talking about to how we're communicating. Yeah, well, it's because, it's like she makes everything a fucking pulling teeth. We had a conversation about some fucking stupid thing in the car because she just, as usual, assumes I'm up to no good when I say anything and doesn't actually listen to what I'm saying. Pay attention to my tone or what she knows about my positions on things already, not respecting the fact that I may be expressing a change of those positions right now. So, yeah, that can be a little frustrating. However, Kim and I are getting along great and have been for a couple days, and that's the other thing I gotta remember is most of the time we're getting along great and happy. Most of the time I don't got any complaints. I might have some complaints about, like, I guess you'd say, unfairness that's already been registered on the flow or something. But I don't know. That comes and goes. Depends on my mood. Peace. Goodbye, gotta go. Have fun, everyone. Goodbye, Florian Bischoff. You are both kind of like that. So she's obligated to cater to your way of communication. Well, the thing to remember about that, LJ, is it's a matter of reciprocity. When she makes a good point, she wants me to agree with it. When she has a criticism that's valid, she wants me to listen to her and pay attention to what she's saying, respond on point, and agree with her if she's right. And I do that. I afford her that basic courtesy. So that I expect her to provide the same thing she expects me to provide is reasonable. This is moisture. Oh yeah, it's in a cup. But I don't just piss in the corner. It would make the garage smell like pee-pee. Not the good kind like the kitty, but the bad kind like my urine. Yeah, it is my moisture. I like to drain my moisture from my body so I can resume dryness. Usually as I get tired, as I don't get enough sleep, and go through a stretch of like living hard sort of, or working hard, I guess, on when I get a new prescription of Adderall, my moisture gets more and more sour, which is to say, I start getting fussy, I start getting grumpy, and maybe I start a few fights, and in those moments, I feel more powerfully the resentments, obviously. Sometimes when I'm not feeling them powerfully, I feel like nothing about it. Well, because you can tell by the slowness of my urination that my prostate is old. So it makes you understand that I have wisdom. That's where wisdom comes from, the prostate. You gotta age it like a fine wine. Just because you feel them does not mean they are justified. F-I-P-O. Just because I feel what? My feelings? Or just because a person feels feelings doesn't mean those feelings are justified? Well, that's the thing. Is Kimberly, for one, seems to think that like her feeling is the fact that matters, and ignores that, I have my feelings too, and they might conflict with hers, and then we're at an impasse. So we can either choose to work together to make the best decision, or we can choose to work against each other. Well, I'm actually showing a lot of discretion with the Adderall, this particular bottle. I've been attempting to pace myself, I guess you'd say, and I've been pretty successful at it. So I'm feeling kind of proud of myself. But like last night, I got a super long night's sleep, which is why I'm still up right now. Thoughts on the humble gravity bong? Well, I have a number of thoughts on the gravity bong, frankly. First of all, if you're going to make a gravity bong, you've got to get the right size of gravity bong thing, or else you're just wasting your time. And really, the best thing to get is a gallon milk jug and cut just the very bottom of it. You need that much space. You need that much water in there, because if you don't have a shit ton of water up in there, when you pull it out, it won't pull the smoke out of the weed into the milk jug. The space left by the water is going down, right? So you need a lot of water in there to have enough draw to pull in the smoke, really. So that's number one thing. If you try to make variations on gravity bongs that are a lot smaller than that, they won't work well. And next thing I have to say about gravity bongs is I don't like the delivery mechanism for the smoke, which is you sort of push it back down and it sort of pushes it into your lungs. But I do like the unusualness of it, and periodically will bust out. If I see an empty gallon milk jug, I'll say, "Oh, you know what? Hey, let's take a couple of gravity bong hits, just for kicks." What you say? Would you say you think more in concepts or words? Words. Concepts. I've thought about how I think about concepts a lot, and how I think about them is in words, but there's a sort of a nub of a concept someplace in my SI, I guess, and I can tell it's there, and I don't have to pull it all the way out to know what it is, even though what it is comprises all of its details. I think what I do is I have a clear understanding of the beginning of it and the first couple of steps of something, and then when I open it up, I rebuild it right on the spot, basically, because it's kind of like one thing prompts my memory and the next one, and then I maybe recalculate a couple of things even in the process. But I have SI as my fourth function. So, I mean, I don't really feel as though I understand anything until it's fully articulated in words, but it's clear to me from doing metacogniting that there are these nubs, so to speak, that represent blocks of arguments, for example, or position, basically blocks of arguments. You can kind of reduce all communication to all productive communication to blocks of arguments. There's also communication that's productive in moist ways that's not blocks of arguments, but that's moisture, and that's for a separate group of people who care about such things a lot. My friend Liz used to sort of talk to me in ways like, sort of this, isn't this thing really great? Oh my God, I loved it when this part happened. It's like, you're not saying anything about it. You're just talking about your emotions. She was damaged, Kim is not an ISFP. Kim is definitely an ISFJ. Her FE tool is so goddamn cut and dry. She's so concerned about appearances and keeping up with the Joneses, and she's always prioritizing appearance over functionality. FE over TE. She's always prioritizing it. If it works well enough to not fall over, but it looks nice, then it's done. So yeah, Kim's is not an ISFP at all. She is an interesting ISFJ and very much deviates from what people expect ISFJs to be like in a lot of ways, without deviating from, in my opinion, what would be an accurate type description, which would be really a description of how they prioritize manners of attention because of their functions, not how that tends to correlate with certain things. It does tend to correlate with SFJ shit, like Kim's into cat videos and Pinterest, and her idea of creativity is finding a cool design that she likes on the internet and copying it. Yeah. So that's just how she is. But she happens to correlate with those things, but not all ISFJs will. But all ISFJs will take the same prioritization approach towards various attentional matters she does. The difference between ISFJ FEs compared to INFJ: ISFJs are much more in the moment. INFJs are much more across time, and ISFJs are less complicated in their emotion, and they get more done by following through on what you might call conventional displays of FE. So making sure they give somebody a present on a birthday, making sure they send them a card at Christmas, making sure they call them on Mother's Day or Father's Day, or like doing all of that shit, and keeping track of who she's keeping up with, so to speak, and when they've last talked and all that kind of stuff. So that's the way that ISFJ uses it across time. It's just in that way. But INFJ actually strategizes across time. So it's like ISFJ won't really think as much about how words are going to play against other words in intuitively subtle ways. So it's like they don't spend the time going, okay, well, this person is currently likely thinking, underestimating my capacity because I haven't mentioned anything about what I do on the side. Let's say this is an INFJ who's got like some really cool shit going on. Like he's in a band that's pretty big and most people have heard of, but he still works his job because he likes it or something. And he's working there, and this new person comes in who's like the new VP, and he can tell the new VP doesn't know that he's this cool guy in this band. Well, INFJ will play with that a lot. Whereas ISFJ won't, and probably it'll be like something that they mentioned in an FE sensitive way, but they're not going to try to exploit it for intuitive FE strategy in that way that INFJ will. Okay. I saw a video of Galenko last night. He talked about unbalanced function development. He specifically used 2-slot F, for example. 6-slot is supposedly especially strong in introverts. If both FE and FI are accentuated, that's basically what borderline is. Or can be. If overindulging in both FE and FI, the person will be in conflict. Hi, Nightwolf. Yeah, I think that for... Well, I mean, I think that there's a lot of that stuff has to do with trauma and damage and stuff that people are going to be... they're going to have trouble distinguishing between their feelings and facts. And that is something that can be worked on and you can talk to them about, but it seems to be a difficult concept for them. I think if you have an experience early in childhood where your feelings are more trustworthy than what the adults are supposed to be caring for you or telling you, then you start distrusting facts. Or if people use facts against you to hurt your feelings over and over again, and they're supposed to be people you're trusting, then that works against you. Nightwolf asks, how are you? I'm fine, Nightwolf. I'm fine. How are you? Are you familiar? Are you Nightwolf because you've completed Dr. Lionel Sprinting Wolf Kazaquo's Sprinting Wolf School of Sprinting Wolves? I think you might have. It's possible. How does an INTP use FE emotions? Could she be mistaken for an INFJ at those times? You know, I had an earlier commenter saying that they thought Michael Pierce was an INTP. Michael Pierce is definitely not an INTP. He's definitely an INFJ. And the reasons are twofold. Number one, INTPs are SI third, but INFJs are NI DOMs. So you can tell the difference by looking at the knowing function most straightforwardly. Michael Pierce did give in the video I watched one example, but it was a canned story about how he got into cognitive functions he's told a bunch of times before. The whole rest of the time, he didn't say a goddamn particularist thing. There was nothing about how he was talking about stuff that suggested to me he approached it from an SI fashion at all. So in that regard, I would say no, it's not possible to really distinguish, to mistake INTP for INFJ if you're looking for a while. At first glance, INFJ can appear like INTP or ENTP because they've got a very alpha quadrant quality to them. That's why you got to look for the NI. Melanderix. Has you thought much about how methods to experience activate each function? Can this be used to train, or does function improvement happen only after analyzing afterwards? Well, you can certainly activate most of the functions without trying too hard or doing anything too magical or weird, right? For example, but first of all, you have to say you can activate them in real time, or you can employ them in a turn-based capacity. So let's look at the real time first. It's very easy to go into SE real time. All you got to do is sit still and not try to empty your head, but try to listen to every single background sound you can hear all around you, and maybe even look around and keep like be prepared, like you're about to get attacked. You're listening carefully for any crack of a leaf or something. If you've got all your extroverted senses extroverting into the world, paying attention to the sensory data coming in, then you're in a real-time state of extroverted sensing attention. Introverted feeling is easy to activate real-time as well. You just got to think of something super sad until you feel sad, and all of a sudden you're in introverted feeling. TE is a little bit trickier to, I guess, activate. It's something I'm working on right now, actually, because there are circumstances in which you really want your TE to be good. And mine's getting better, but it's not exactly that I'm training it. It's just that awareness plus application of awareness in circumstances that naturally demand extroverted thinking invariably caused my extrovert thinking to get better. So the idea of training oneself in functions, I think, is silly. But the idea of analyzing one's use of functions is very good because it inevitably causes one to improve in them in some sense. But yeah, activating TE is, I guess, you can activate your TE by doing a maze if you're trying to solve it with some approach other than trial and error, or something like Sudoku. That's a TE thing. You could experience TE trying to figure one of those things out. I mean, you could say that's a TI thing. That's a tricky one. It's on the borderline, actually. What would be a good TE thing? I mean, you could try to fix something that's broken in your house. That'd be a good way to activate your TE. The thing to remember is SI is not TE. This is what I keep fucking up with. Stop looking back at what you know already about how to fix doorknobs or something and look at the problem in front of you. As I keep trying to tell myself. Okay, so and then NI's easy to activate in real time, so to speak. You use it to know timing on things in real time. So if you were to have a friend run across your yard and you stand looking straight here and you time it, okay, if I throw it right now, it'll hit him in that spot right there, that spot where I want to hit it, then you're going to be using your NI. NI across time, or NI metaphysical, is if you pick 5 random poems from the internet or something, or 5 random songs from the internet, and you listen to them back to back, or even just 3, and you go, which one of these is best? And it hits you clear as day, like, well, this song's clearly better than the other 2. That's NI. You can't, there's not really an experience to reflect on except just, knowing's a lot faster than deliberating. You can't really reflect on what happened. The knowledge arrived, not the thing to be analyzed. So, okay, that's NI. Now, activating SI is as easy as take a bath, pay attention to how good the water feels, the warm water. Take a bath on a cold day, pay attention to how good it feels to get in the warm water. Go, do all that shit and focus on that and just pay attention to that stuff. And then you're in SI. FE, you just need to pay attention to how other people around you are perceiving everything and how they're likely to respond to things, and worry about your tone a lot, and worry about managing all the pitfalls of talking. Like not come across as arrogant, not come across as heartless, not come across as meow, not come across as meow. FE eliminates a lot of possible language from what you're doing. In some sense, if you're wanting to manage the FE stuff really carefully, you're going to be more guarded in what you say. Let me go on to the next thing here. Introverted feeling. Aneta H says, introverted feeling is more like emotional synesthesia. Prism the Prism says, do you think that people generally, whether they're aware of typology or not, end up getting together with their duel? No, I think generally they don't end up getting together with their duel, and there are barriers to getting with your duel that make it less likely than getting with somebody else. First of all, Socionic says, and I think this is true at least for Alpha Quadrant probably, and maybe for the other quadrants as well, that a dual pair is likely to not think each other viable options for reproductive partners right away. That the extrovert's going to think the person is boring and there's nothing about them that makes them stand out, and then the introvert is going to be like, the extrovert is too good for me, or isn't going to be interested in me because I'm so boring. It's only until they spend a little bit of time together and they have an opportunity to help each other in some ways that in contrary to their conscious opinion about it, they start to become deeply attached to each other. Because the things that they're receiving, when you receive what you're seeking from a partner, you don't notice it. You just notice maybe that things are easier now or something. It's so natural when you get what you're receiving from a duel that it's very easy to take it for granted. And because like Kimberly and I, we value different manners of showing love and of validating the other person and of getting and receiving and giving affirmation. So that can be tricky because like when she's feeling loving or sorry, regretful or something, she does nice things for me, like cooks me food and puts out my clothes and takes extra care on the details of all those things. So when I have to go to work, get in the car, and she's got a coffee and a soda for me and a bag of whatever, and it's like that's her showing me she loves me and saying, and also how she says she's sorry and stuff like that. But of course, I'm fixated on the words. I want the words to be what I want the words to be, and I don't like your behavioral solutions. That's bullshit. Of course, it's not taking for granted what I value so much because it's so comfortable and natural for both of us to give what the other person wants and receive what the other person wants to give. So in that regard, it's easy to outthink yourself a bit in the relationship too, and you can lose a perfectly good duel because you can't see the forest for the trees, kind of. But once they get together and have been together for a while, it's very unlikely they're going to split because they'll keep being drawn back to each other over and over again. The only way they're going to split is if one of the duels replaces that duel with another duel. You'll never be in a non-dual relationship again after you're with a duel, I don't think. Let me see what else we got going on here. So I was having a discussion with a coworker about climate change, and I said, I'm worried about where you get your news. He got very upset and started yelling. I told him he was confusing marketing strategy with facts. Should I be the one to apologize? No. Why would you apologize? What was his position on it? Oh, Patrick, because I don't know why. I don't know. It's like I was trying to get a spot that was a nice beginning spot, and it wasn't that clean sounding at the beginning, so I just put a little shit at the beginning to kind of mush out the transition from nothing to the song. He didn't believe in climate change. Okay, well, like he didn't believe it's happening at all? He didn't believe it's anthropogenic or what? Does he think that the earth is not getting, like, the climate's not getting warmer? Or just that people didn't make it? Because at all. And his reasoning, then I'm sure, is because he thinks that there's some sort of conspiracy amongst probably left-leaning scientists to make the shit up and push their agenda for environmental reasons or something, even though there's not really so much of a risk or something like that. But does he say why it's bogus? Does he have good reasons to justify his claim that global warming isn't happening? I'm curious about that. Like, what would you have to? Why would you think global warming is not? It's an NI thing. That 9 out of 10 doctors used to say smoking was good as scientists lie. Or they could just be wrong. Could it be easy for one to mistake accumulated social TE data for FE? What would the tell on that one be? Well, the thing is, both of them are practical functions. That's the takeaway I am walking away from the conversation I had earlier today with is they're both very practical functions. They just approach practical questions from a different angle. TE approaches it by solving the problem yourself, and FE approaches it by incorporating the community to solve your problem. So if you're looking for practicality, you're going to see a lot of practicality, not just in the TE DOMs, but in the FE DOMs as well. especially in ESFJ. ENFJ is a little squirrely to be anything other than a big squirrel. But yeah, so they're both practical types. They're both into interfacing, which is to say, accomplishing shit via a set of narrowly defined responses. It's like interface types, they want the biggest frame of the matter to be fully resolved. So an INFJ is fine with a certain amount of going into a circumstance, knowing in advance there's going to be some improvisation, some freestyling, or some moments that they're going to have to be reactive to. So an INFJ would probably not start a video and make a video himself until he knew what he was going to do in full about it. But an INFJ working with an ENTP is happy to work together with the ENTP because there's an implicit trust between an INFJ and ENTP that the ENTP will fill the space. The INFJ doesn't have to know in advance what he's going to do because he'll be able to use his interface function and react in the moment and go, here's my short-term reaction. And that works fine for him because he does know the biggest frame, namely, this is a video. It's going to be basically about this sort of thing. And if you don't stick within that main frame, if you change basically what it's about, that'll upset the INFJ. But within that frame, they're happy to improvise and be quite improvisational, unlike ISFJs who are not very improvisational. What does it look like to give any to an ISFJ? It's not really giving them any so much as it is helping them manage possibilities. So, for example, this conversation with Ruben has been informative because the nice thing about it is it's a point of contention, but it's not about either of us exactly. It's sort of about Kim's approach to it from my perspective, but it helps me understand what I do for her because she's more willing to listen to me when we're talking about that. And basically what I say is, look, Kim, you still want to fret about this and you want to know what we're going to do here. But what I'm telling you is the only thing we can do and the only thing we should do in the correct course of action is, number one, we'll have a talk with Ruben about this whole thing after he has his job interview and we find out if he gets the job or not. The tenor of this conversation is going to be different depending on whether he's working full time or not, So let's hold off and decide what we're going to do until after that. And you might want to try to know what all the possible things are we're going to do in circumstance X or Y. But there's no reason to go down those possibility chains because they're all conditional. And there's too many variables right now for us to waste our energy potentiating out all the possibilities until some of those variables have resolved. That's an example of an ENTP helping ISFJ manage possibilities better. Because one of the things I guess ENTPs do well as an extroverted intuitor is we know when not to explore ideational chains. We know we're not TI DOMs. When the conditionality gets too dense, we go, fuck it. I don't want to think this one all the way out. And when you have too many variables, the conditionality gets too dense. So we avoid using any in places where it's not well suited. The other thing I would say is Kimberly's always doing this thing to me where she'll go, you know what, we should do a manity. And then I get some sort of concept of what she wants, and then I'll come up with some ideas about how we might accomplish that, or in other words, how that idea might manifest. It's not really TE. It's not like the mechanics of doing it. It's any like, okay, well, your idea is some sort of flower thing made out of wood or something. Well, how about we do this out of this instead or something like that, right? So I provide that kind of any for her as well. But one of my frustrations is she doesn't really have a lot of respect for the scope and range of extroverted intuition, so that she'll prompt my extroverted intuition with some thought like that. I wish we could think of some way to and I'll direct my attention to it. and I'll be starting to pull apart some of the layers of it. And then she'll say, you know, what would be great is if we had somebody to meow instead, and say something totally different. And so then I'll go, oh, my expert intuition will go, okay, let me try this new one then. Things and start getting some progress. And then, you know what would be fun? Let's put wheelbarrows on the garage and let's run around in togas. And it's like, yeah, you got to let ideas aren't just playthings that you toss out and leave on the lawn in the rain. You either explore them or you don't. You don't just start a bunch of ideational quests and then abruptly cock block them, you know, right at the last minute or something, right as they're getting started. So yeah, FE kind of works like TCP packets, right? The interface functions are kind of FE-ish. I mean, kind of handshakey. They have that protocol quality to them. It's not like uploading all at once. It's like, okay, what do you want? Oh, I want this. Okay, well, do you want this as well? No, I just want the first one. Okay, well, then is it going to be paired with this thing over here? Yes, it's going to be paired with that thing over here if the following thing. Okay, well, how do I know if it's the following thing? That's interface. Going back and forth, getting, receiving, taking action, meow. Maids FE. Seems like it may be the worst, if all time. Cades. I thought you were talking about your maid. My French maid has the worst FE of all time. Sometimes she forgets to thank me after I let her blow me. Unbelievable. What does it look like? No, I read that one already. That is very rude of her. Yeah, Kate's FE is pretty bad. Kate, who is an INTJ, talks about his FE once. It's basically a constructed protocol for social behaviors. So, I mean, the thing is, TE users can actually get better at FE, I think, than FE users can get at TE, because TE users will naturally, if they recognize and understand they have weak TE, they'll watch videos by like the Charisma Coach or something explaining tricks of TE, and tricks of FE. It won't be actual FE, but it'll be some workaround that is an imitation kind of thing. And you know, as they get older, if they keep practicing that stuff and watching those videos and learning how to do things, they can get pretty good at it. Your TE DOMs, but pretty good at faking it. I don't think the FE, I mean, not TE DOMs, TE tool users, I guess. Yeah, TE tool users. The FE tool users, I don't think they really get very good at faking TE though. It's like being with an ISFJ means fairly high frequency of face palms. Might ENTP and INFJ be good as a couple if they are really looking for trust in their partner? Yeah, I mean, I think INFJ is the second best choice probably for ENTP, or ISTJ possibly is the second best. Yeah, it's hilarious. I agree. But it's not just ISFJ's TE, it's also INFJ's TE is hilarious. Emily and Kim were out in the street. Emily was going to take her car and follow us, or we're going to this place called Pepper Tree, and we take her car, we're going to take our car. And I listened to them, Kim, go out there and say, okay, and try to explain to her how to, so try to follow us, but in case you get separated, you're going to go, okay, so we're going way down foothill. I'm trying to explain to her how to get there. And I said, okay, this polar TE has got to stop you two. Follow us. If you get lost, put Pepper Tree in your phone. Let's go. It's like, come on, people. But it is hilarious. They're so busy effing at each other. A bunch of, like, even the INFJ thought to herself, this isn't an efficient way to get to learn this information, which she probably didn't. She probably just paying attention to it, going, okay, I'll take this. This is a how to do. This is one way to garner this information. My how is good enough here. And yeah, just effing at each other and accomplishing nothing. So anyway, I think it's adorable. Guess that's a slave, though. I'd like a maid if it were free. That's not a slave, Matthew. It's a wife or girlfriend. Hal Pipak. Thoughts on DSP's latest video that most people type themselves upside down? I haven't seen it, but I think it's crazy. I don't think most people type themselves upside down. If anything, most people type themselves as the other attitude of their type. Would be probably a more common mistyping. So ENTPs are at first likely to think they're INTPs because they think they're so TI. INTPs might be likely to think they're ENTPs because they're so NE. Because people identify most clearly with their tool functions. It's kind of the most clearly understood part of yourself because you use it as a tool exclusively. It's not your nature. It's more comprehensible in some capacity. So if anything, people are going to likely mistype themselves as it's the other attitude of their type. If you're an ISFP, you'd be most likely to mistype yourself as an ESFP. If you're an ESFP, most likely to mistype yourself as an ISFP. If you're an INFJ, you're most likely to mistype yourself as an ENFJ, and vice versa, and so forth for the whole thing. So I don't agree with that. Matthew, you should get a high-paying job, house, and all the stuff a girl wants, and then you get a maid. Not a bad idea. Can that many people really confuse I with E? Well, I mean, sure. Like, when I first got with Kimberly, I thought she was an ESFJ at first because she uses an extrovert feeling. Extrovert feeling is her tool function. When she's interacting in the world, when she's doing work of some kind, when she's solving things or moving towards a desired status or state of affairs, she's using FE. And until we got used to each other and I was no longer somebody that she was FEing at, but instead a family member, then I had every reason to think she was an ESFJ. If she's evaluating her own behavior by thinking about how she acts at work or out in the community, she might have every reason to think she's an ESFJ because that's thinking about how she acts rather than the cognitive function stuff. Where did you get your main knowledge about cognitive functions? I guess, it's hard to say. I read a lot of different things. I first learned about I guess from a YouTube video, maybe. I probably first was introduced to him from a YouTube video, and then I read about it a lot from socionic stuff. And I read a lot of MBTI stuff, and I just read a lot of stuff. And then I've thought about it a lot, most importantly, and I've done a lot of intellectual work. Let's say I've written a lot about it. I made a lot of tables. I made a lot of charts. I've written a lot of text about it. And in doing so, I managed to make some mistakes that were possible pitfalls I could have made. I did make some of them. And, I had to scrap some shit and start over. But I'm a debate coach is the other thing I remember. So what I've done here is basically what I do at work. I made a case. I made a case as waterproof as I could make it, as watertight as I could make it, and it's been withstanding scrutiny now for quite some time, my own and others. So it's, to the extent that there are things in there that are unique to my approach, those are original. But they're original not because of some arbitrary desire to change the names of things or represent things differently, but because they're correct. And it's in my opinion, the only correct way to understand it. So, that's what I think. I can defend it better than anybody else can. I can win the arguments. So what else is there to say about it? I'm an ISFP named Thane. Oh, you're a dude, though. I'm an ISFP and would love to date an ISFJ chick next time. ISFJs are greatest friends for me, but now I want to date one. Gotta get up in that ISFJ. Oh, yeah. Love that cognitive stack. The most after learning about this online. They are sexy. Yeah, they are. They're adorable. They're low-fi. Ligad Kalfa. Does Strauss is a Jewish last name? I'm not Jewish. My family's not Jewish. I don't know. I know some Strausses are Jewish. But well, my dad comes from Pennsylvania Dutch country, Amish country. He wasn't Amish himself, but he was a much less hardcore, version of that or something. And my mom's a Brandstetter. They're from Missouri. They were German. Both sides of the family German. Christians, But yeah, a lot of Jewish stresses out there. People met there. I go, yo, let me borrow your yarmulke. I gotta go to the temple to do some Jewish stuff. Gotta get some latkes. Gotta get some matzo ball soup. I gotta get some of those curly hair things that come down like that. It's gonna be a great day. But I need to borrow your Jew license first. How did you know we have Jew licenses? I didn't. Now I do. You gave it away. What types are most likely to get all of their ideas from outside sources? And what types would be most willing to take such ideas at face value? Well, I think SITE, well, TESI. TESI is most likely to get their ideas from outside sources. Probably. Maybe ESFJ as well would get a lot of ideas from outside sources. The third slot NEs, more so than the fourth slot. The reason being, fourth slot NEs have too much identity in their SI. It gives them particularist understanding of themselves. But the third slot NE types, third slot NE doesn't steal ideas. They just think that's where ideas come from, other people. And I collect them. ENTJ might also collect them, but might represent them as his own. That's the difference. Or might not. Depends. Probably has a story he's decided to use about it, regardless. And the types of most willing to take such ideas at face value, probably ISFP is pretty naive. Though, he's saying something that's obviously a joke that's super ridiculous. And then they go, is that true? Kim's a little bit like that too, though. ISFJ can be a bit like that. I told her the Chinese fire drill thing. I was like, I had to do Chinese fire drill so I could smoke one time. And we were in this long ass fucking line for a stoplight. I was like, fuck this. I'm getting out of this car and smoking. Because at the time, I don't smoke in the Mini when Kim's in the car. She doesn't want me smoking in the Mini. So, I got out. I played Chinese fire drill. I made a joke about how, isn't it weird how Chinese people prepare for fire eventualities by getting out of their car and running around in a circle? And she's like, is that really how Chinese people do fire drills? I'm like, no, it's not, Kim. It's a joke. That's gullible, right? I see lots of things like that Kim misses at first. I have to explain it and go, I guess I was being too dry there, What Can one be stuck looping between first and third due to traumatic experiences when using the tool function? No. You're always going to use your tool function in conjunction with either your dominant or potentially your fourth. The thing is, if you're responding to trauma, you'll primarily be using your fourth instead of your first. You'll still be using it in conjunction with your second and third as usual, more or less, because I think those things aren't as much part of your ontology. They aren't as much part of your being. So when you're feeling traumatized as a being, you switch up one of four, basically. You go into this mode where you start acting like your fourth slot function a lot. You still have your normal tool function, but your tool function is not very effective in conjunction with your fourth slot function, because my fourth slot function is to know. It makes zero sense to both know and deliberate. If I know, I don't have to deliberate. If I have to deliberate, I don't yet know. So they don't really work in conjunction with each other at all. So when you go SI heavy because you've experienced some sort of trauma, you don't bypass TI as a tool function. It's just you don't need to use it because you aren't presenting ideas that need to be decided about. You're knowing how to take care of yourself in response to trauma. So the thing is, you can basically settle into the functions you can kind of use in isolation almost are your 1-4. I can just NE. I can NE TI, or I could just NE. I could NE FE, or I could just NE. NE FE is making jokes. NE TI is making arguments. NE is just playing with words. Some of it funny, some of it just kind of nice. That sounds neato to me, or something. I'm going to try that, Matthew. I'm going to try that. Should one train his shadow function or let them drain in the closet? One should not try to train one's shadow functions, I don't think. I think it's a silly thing to do. But one should train one's understanding of attentional channels so that one can recognize one's habits and either make interesting observations or recognize instances when one ought to consciously try to attend that way. You're never going to be effective at it. It's never going to be a good reflexive approach to anything. You wouldn't want to spend your time training yourself to be left-handed. It would just mean you're not using your best hand so that you can make your worst hand better, so that what? It's like you don't want to have to think about which hand to use when you go to open a doorknob, turn a doorknob. You just want it to be reflexive, because it's a waste of time and energy and attention. Is the tertiary function similar to the lead function in certain ways compared to the tool function? It seems that way, more so. Well, they're the same attitude, for one thing. So they're both extroverted or both introverted. But I would say that they're each distinct. The dominant function is going to be your implicit frame. The thing that causes you to choose to do this versus that, to end up in this field of study or end up in this situation or whatever. And if you stay in that situation and you're comfortable there at all, it means it's past your implicit frame. You can use your dominant function effectively to accomplish what you want ontologically in that situation. It's also the hand that holds the hammer of your tool function, so to speak. The tool function is an instrumental value only. You don't have an absolute value for it. I don't actually care if things are consistent. I only care that my shit accomplishes the perceptual outcomes that I want ultimately, and that it resonates with truth, my fifth slot, other absolute value. So I'm not attached to TI at all, even though I use it all the time. I'm attached to being able to use TI. I hate environments that don't let me use TI. Like, for example, Kim blocks my TI all the time by not answering my questions, not letting me parse shit down, not working with me rhetorically, etc. That drives me crazy. But it's not the consistency itself I value or don't value. It's the ability to use my tool function to good effect freely and easily without opposition, without obstructionism. So it's still not an absolute value. The third slot function is your absolute self-payoff value. So I feel most like I'm getting paid. I feel the most juice when I'm getting FE juice. That is to say, affirmation, respect, praise, having good reason to believe that other people find me both warm and competent. And then the fourth one is seeking. So I think the third one is not like the second or the first. Comparing the same cognitive function like third slot and I compared to first slot and I. Well, third slot and I is I guess you could, it has this in similarity, which is you want to achieve an NI if you're a third slot. So when opportunities present themselves to demonstrate good NI or execute good NI or use it, ISTP or an ISFP will probably jump on that opportunity. But I don't think anybody's going to mistake a third slot NI user for an NI Dom. And the only thing that they have in common, perhaps, is they both have an element of absolute value to them, the first and the third slot, whereas the second is instrumental. First isn't really an absolute value, but it's an implicit value which functionally is absolute in the calculus, sort of, so to speak, of what you do and how you be and where you be. Matthew Alistair has a good piece of advice. Bang that ISFJ so hard her functions flip and she becomes an ENTP. Sorry, I forgot this is a family show. Well, that's how you start a family. Chrism the Prism. Do you think duels after settling in with each other have the most synergistic sex? Not necessarily. I don't think so. Of course, Kim and I, it's a little bit more challenging to settle in with each other because Kim is so deeply, has a lot of trust issues. And I'm unaccustomed to that. I'm very, it's like, I didn't know things had to be so difficult. Like, why aren't you just cooperating with me? Why do I have to fight for this all the time? Why do I gotta make a, she doesn't like to give up control at all. So she'll often, one of the ways that she takes control is I'll go start putting the moves on her and she'll shut me down right away or shut me down pretty quick or indicate I'm doing something wrong or otherwise just sort of like stumble me off of my conquest process and take the lead in that capacity. And so she doesn't ever feel like she's out of control. It's our sex right now, our sex these days is pretty good, but we'll see. I guess it's too soon to say. It's getting better. It's been getting better for a long time, and it continues to. I don't care about that. I want them to use those clips. Let them use those clips. I haven't said anything I regret saying. I haven't made any, advocacies of violence or supported anything that's immoral. I've only done what's correct and good and just and true and made a bunch of jokes. I take some of those jokes out of context, Yeah. Doesn't Kim is ISFJ and Eric ENTP? Yes, we are ISFJ and ENTP. Yes, confirms what I thought. Thanks for that answer. You're welcome. Can you imagine the clips they'll try to use against you in your presidential run? OMG. Yeah, they'll try to use them against me. I don't think they're gonna. I think it's gonna backfire. I think it's all gonna fucking backfire, unless they clip things totally out of context and fucking slanderously. In class, I'm being taught by two ENTPs at the same time. You got an ENTP teacher? That must be fun. Do you think it has to do with her having more intuition than both your exes added together? No, I think it has to do with damage and lack of trust, mostly, and a lack and a. We had to learn a lot of translation between the two of us. We talk in different ways, and when there's relationship troubles or some sort, or we're talking about the relationship, we're talking very different ways, and I've had to. And it was shocking, just absolute utter culture shock for me to get into this relationship because she had no practice being a teammate in a relationship, frankly. And I've had to get her to learn what that means. At the same time, it's quite likely she was a good teammate before, but other people took advantage of her and fucked her up, and now she doesn't trust anymore. Well, fuck those guys, because I'm the one person she can and should absolutely trust. I'm the one person who's not going to bail on her and who's not taking advantage of her and who's not just mooching off her and shit. But she's used up all of her trust or something. I don't know. Are they giving you a headache, Chris? No. They're giving him magnificent learning in his brain. He's having a massive adventure of learning right now. Meanwhile, you're just being snarky. I'm sure if this was how it was described, but I think it was an article on Intivus SJ Communication. I wish I had that article. It was quite revelatory. She is worth it, for sure. Who is any polar? My penis? My penis is not any polar. It's got a lot of crazy ideas. It wants to go to a polar. Your opposition is going to hire a ton of people to go through and shift through all your footage and take it completely out of context, turn against people, but on their character more likely than their arguments. So that's fine. The thing is, I want to point out that people who do make those sort of rhetorical crimes, commit those kind of rhetorical crimes, are people of low character. The only way, what they'll have to do to deal with me is prevent me from ever being able to engage authentically with any of the other candidates. If I get a chance to, they're toast. Which one, Matthew Davis? You're talking about the critics one? The Dave Superpowers response video, the critics one? I did. I saw it. I made a response video to that, actually. If there's another one since then that you're talking about, then I have seen. Yeah, it was pretty interesting. He's doing his thing. He was trying to sort of spin things a bit, but and the thing is, I was just gonna let it slide. I wasn't even gonna call this out on anything. But then the comments on that video got interesting and crazy, so I made a video on the comments and I addressed the whole thing. Pretty interesting video, I think. So, I mean, what do you do with that whole reality? I don't know what to do with it. I don't know what to do with it because it's like I'm not interested in some sort of war with DSP. And at the same time, people are going to continually ask me about him and certain things he says, and I'm going to say, no, that's wrong. It's like trying to catch two sets of high-speed, consecutively launching tennis ball blaster balls with my hands individually. That's fast. That's fast grabs. Who cares, lol? I care, LJ. I care. Do you care? What do you care about? You care about love, tenderness? I do. I care a lot, LJ. You haven't fingered my tenders yet. Once you finger my tenders, you'll know. You'll know. Oh, LJ, you care a lot about tenderness. I can tell. I can smell it. That's a tender woman I smell. Mm-hmm. Tender with dampness. You don't put it in my tender, okay? You finger my tender. Not insert your finger into my tender, okay? It's a gentle, kind of a come here motion. It's gentle stroking. No, my tenders are not vegetables either. My tenders are metaphysical pockets of dampness. If you feel them, if you finger it properly, you look at your finger afterwards. It's got a slight glisten to it. Lots of ENTPs act like they don't care, but they do, just afraid to show it or aren't quite aware of how much they care. The latter part is definitely true. There's been plenty of times when I've been caught off guard by realizing something's important to me. I'd like to think I don't act like I don't care. At this point in my life, I understand that caring is actually, in many ways, the most important thing you can do. You have to have an affirmation. You can't go through life just negating shit. And that was a hard lesson for me to learn. It took a long time to learn it. You got to have faith in something. If it's like, let's say you want to be, say you're a debate coach. Like I didn't start off my career as a debate coach. It wasn't until I was 33 or something, maybe 32, that I started coaching debate. At first, I had because I had never done anything like that before, where you have a genuine success metric and you're actually pushed by the structure of the thing to try hard for natural reasons, which is to say it's zero-sum competition. It's not good enough to be good enough. You have to be better than everybody else. So that was a weird phenomenon for me, because I'd never done anything like that, which required me to actually put my full effort into it or fail, or at least put a lot of effort into it or fail. It required me to have faith in my own agency too, because at first I thought it was fluke that my kids were doing well or winning. It took a long time for me to accept the fact that it had something to do with my coaching, that it wasn't just random luck, because I had never really understood what it meant to apply myself with agency towards something and see results over time. Implement and follow through on a plan to accomplish good results by the end of the plan. That's TE. It's countervalued, and it's not something I even believed in, really. I didn't think it happened ever. I didn't believe in my own agency, that I had impacts. I just thought everything you did was pointless. It was just like, these jobs, this work we do, just fucking waste of fucking time. How do you teach other people to debate? Well, I mean, this is the thing. You don't teach them to debate so much as you prepare cases for them and or with them, depending, and you have them run those cases against each other. So they'll run around, they'll scrimmage, and you go, no, you're not explaining that right. Why didn't you answer this with this? No. This is why we have the Gergens card. You're supposed to run this in response to me. And you practice. And the great thing about debate coaching is it's not just about the kids. The coaches make the cases. So there's strategy advantages. My kids always have a strategy advantage. My cases are better. And that's not necessarily determinate. The best cases don't necessarily win. The kids got to argue the best. And having the best case may make it easier to make the better arguments to win, but you got to know your case really well. And in my cases, tend to be a little bit complex or tricky to argue sometimes because they're very proofy. Like I do things that are logical proofs, sort of, which are fairly uncommon in debate. But if you link it back to framework, it can work really well. So that's how you teach it. But you can never be the best. I mean, you can be the best. It depends how big you want to make your frame. I can be the best in this moment, in this context, at any given thing, just fine. Do I get to be the best in the world forever? No. But, who's the best debater in the world? Bring it. I'll take them on. No problem. And I was the best coach in the league for quite some time. I mean, there was a stretch. I won the elementary debate tournament. My kids won the elementary tournament 8 years in a row, and that's 16 consecutive tournaments. We got first place in elementary. It was comers from all different schools in the area, all desperately trying to knock me off. I remember feeling bad one time because Mike was so frustrated that once again I won the fucking elementary tournament. That doesn't just happen for. I mean, granted, they're elementary kids, but that just shows I'm a way better teacher than the other coaches too. It's not just it's a combination of things. You got to be an effective case builder, and you've got to be an effective educator. You got to teach them. You've got to have high fucking assumptions. I start right in with the middle school, or even elementary school with fucking highly complex shit. I don't waste their time. I make them know how to argue that shit. It's amazing. They can be quite good. Like, I've often said in the past that I've had plenty of middle schoolers who would just annihilate 99% of adults in debate about anything. But elementary schoolers are a little bit more. This is more of a fair matchup. But I've had some good fifth graders. There's some really good fifth graders. I mean, when I was defining the resolutions for elementary, we just used the National Public Forum resolutions for high school. So, for example, a resolution that my kids debated in elementary as fifth graders was the United States should. It was something like the United States should use military force to prevent ISIS from establishing a proto-state or something like that. It was an ISIS topic, so it was a pretty heavy topic, and they need to learn a lot of arguments. I had made them learn de Tocqueville they had to use de Tocqueville, which is not an easy argument to use. It states that and the reason that we can't have the Middle East countries, we can't impose democracy on them or bring democracy to them or cause regime change that'll get democracy or whatever, is because the only way that countries attain democracy is if they have the habits of democracy, which need to be developed through municipal states, like city states, where the locality of it, the localism and the insular nature of the thing makes for a community that ends up sort of naturally developing the habits of democracy. Is this an actually good argument? Not really. It's kind of bullshit, but it's from like the 1800s when de Tocqueville wrote that. And regardless, it's a good argument to run because people never hear it. They never encounter it except when I run it with my kids. And it's a mechanism argument that says, no matter what we do now, the mechanism that is necessary for them to achieve democracy is contraindicative of your affirmation. You can't win unless you defeat this mechanism. And nobody's got on-case responses to it. They all have to run off-case shit. Like or critique it for some reason rather than actually say, I have a card here that says Tocqueville's wrong. No, fingering my tenders actually pay you in metaphysical dollars. Metaphysical equity. Yeah. So you get paid either 10 metaphysical clams, 20 metaphysical buckaroos, or 50 metaphysical wingers, as they're called. It's up to you. So how far would I get learning debate solo without taking any classes or such? You can watch my debate videos. That would help. But really, it's difficult to get good at debate without competing in it. Because no matter how talented you are, I always say to all my debaters, no matter how good you are in class and scrimmage, and no matter how talented you think you are, until you've competed in an actual tournament, you are not a real debater. Which basically means when you go through a real debate round, even if it's for adults, if it's not a pure flow round, it doesn't matter. But if you go through a real competition round of some sort, where you're actually debating somebody like on a YouTube channel or something, then you abruptly thereafter understand the process of debating better if it's a well-run debate. And a lot of things fall into place that suddenly have a experiential link that makes you get it all of a sudden. And then people start really becoming debaters. What role do INFJs with good TI play in a debate? INFJs can be very successful at debate. One of my friends from Northern California was the best coach in the country for a little while in middle school. He won most. He cleaned up at Nats one year, basically. He was the dominant team in the nation that year. I've been the dominant team in the nation multiple years too, with kudos. Not my own school, but INFJs can be very effective because the thing is they're not as ideationally active as your NTPs, but they do have NI, which allows them to be good at concision. And a lot of times debate rounds are won and lost on use of time. So I have a 4-minute speech in the Lincoln Douglas debate, for example, after the 7-minute neg rebuttal. So let's say I'm a Lincoln Douglas debater and I have this 4-minute speech. It comes after the 7-minute rebuttal, which means what I've got to do in this 4-minute speech is answer my opponent's rebuttals that he made in his 7-minute speech and address any case he made. So he doesn't have to only make rebuttals. He may establish some contentions. So I've got to rebut those contentions and answer his rebuttal of my case, my 6-minute case, in 4 minutes. It's known as the hardest speech in all of flow debate. It's called the 1AR in Lincoln Douglas, the first AF rebuttal, because the AF has another speech at the very end. So NI DOMs have an advantage in not having the struggle that NE people have, which is their NE runs away with them. They lose track of the time. They don't get to some important thing that's on the flow, so they end up dropping it. And then the INFJ hammers that and says, this is dropped, silence equals assent. And as a consequence, you're going to have to vote for me, Judge, because when he assents to this one, it wins me the round for reason X, Y, or Z. So INFJs, because they're really good at timing and time stuff and concision with their language, and because debate has so much to do with that, they can be very effective. Of course, as with any NI user, they're susceptible to surprise. INTJs are, I think, the biggest. I think INTJs and ENTPs are probably the best two debaters. INTPs could be tossed in the mix too. They're almost just as good as the two ENTPs and INTJs. But the thing is, and I'd say it's a tie between ENTP and INTJ, because ENTP has the advantage of, if you surprise an INTJ, you can win the round. Easily enough. They're not going to be able to come up with the answer on the fly. if you give them something squirrely. But the problem is over time, INTJs become tougher and tougher and tougher and tougher and tougher because everything they learn, they generalize out as best they can, and they never fail to utilize a tool they've already mastered when it's appropriate to use it. They don't use the wrong thing at the very wrong time. They don't make mistakes once they have it down, but they're susceptible to being caught with surprises. Yes, ENTPs make mistakes, but we're usually capable of sort of squirming our way out of it and go, ta-da, look, I'm fine. That wasn't what it sounded like. Yeah. Well, there's zero class for debate in my area. Okay, just build cases and challenge others. Well, you can debate me. Pick a topic, pick your side. You want half or nag, and let's make a video. Good on you, man. I had 2 different debate and public speaking coaches in primary or high school, and they were really great memories to help me build self-esteem. You've done that for your students. So thanks, Matthew. Some of your success in debate coaching could be your skills and motivator, perhaps. That's quite possible, too, Matthew. But I think that it has mostly to do with setting the bar higher. Like, I try to teach my kids harder shit than anybody else does. A lot harder, a lot sooner. And it's amazing what people are capable of when you expect them to actually fulfill their potential rather than like in school. I mean, in school, all you got to go is, I don't quite understand this. This is hard. And so she goes, "Aw, let me slow down for you." I said, "Well, you better fucking get your head out of your ass then. Fucking, why aren't you writing this shit down? That's why you don't know it, because you aren't doing the basic fucking legwork." So when I tell my middle schoolers, I say shit like that to them all the time. If they're not doing it, I don't know if that's motivational. That's just me being genuinely outraged that I'm up there writing shit down on the board and lecturing as fast as I can to get as much information in their fucking heads as possible, and they're not even writing it down. They're gonna get my foot up their ass. Yeah, a lot of people think kids can't really do much. They can be, you can see like savant kids being amazing musicians, but it's not just those things. It's fucking debate too, for sure. Academics. The reason it's so fucked up in the school system is because there's no understanding that there's individuation necessary for types who are naturally attentionally designed for this shit. You need to go 1,000,000 times faster. And for the rest of them, they shouldn't be in the class. I typed my friend as an ESFJ, and he had been typed as an ENTP. His TI is weaker than mine, and his ideation is slow and grounded. Is that enough to disqualify him as an ENTP? Yeah. I mean, I don't know about you. I don't know about the comparison to you, because I'm not sure what your whatever is, but I'm not sure how strong your TI is or how fast your ideation is. But I would say if his ideation is slow and grounded, then he's probably not an ENTP. ESFJs, remember, they've got polar in eyes, so they may not understand that there is a single truth here about this. My lack of English speaking skills is a major handicap when it comes to live debate with a native speaker. Oh, you're not a native speaker. Okay. Well, yeah, that's fair. I understand. Makes sense. That would be a concern for me too. Totally motivational is your style of teaching. Yeah, I mean, I'm not, I also do the following things. I say, you don't have any homework in my class, but at some point when you get it, you'll probably start to want to make some of your own shit. And they do, invariably. I don't ever assign anything, but after they get into debate, they're spending more time on debate homework than anything else. And I'm not assigning a goddamn thing. I don't expect them to do anything at home. It's like, I don't like homework. Why should they? I tell them I want to do the minimum amount of work possible to win first place, which is a fair amount of work, but I'm not interested in work that doesn't produce genuine progress towards our goal of winning. And winning is the only thing that matters. I mean, we have to be ethical about it. No cheating or anything. That's the prerequisite for winning to mean anything. But yeah, I don't want to waste their time. It's pretty TE. I'm pretty TE in the classroom. It's where my TE is best. But even so, I go into every class of debate coaching having no idea what I'm going to do until I'm standing up in front of them and go, okay, what did we do last time again? Oh, that's right. We were halfway through this round. Okay. All right, let's finish that. Then we'll do this. Yeah. Efficiency is important. But the thing is, I'm not efficient because I've got protocols or I'm using SI. It's actual TE in the sense that I'm interfacing. I'm going, okay, I'm hearing from these responses that these guys are misconceiving this core foundational idea upon which this other thing is built. So I need to go back and re-explain this right now. And then I do. I'm always responsive to what's happening in front of me. And that's TE. I'm not going in with a plan. I'm not ideating based on where I want to ideate. Instead it's based on where failure is stinking. Yeah, who likes SI in school? I don't want to memorize much shit either. It's the other thing about debate, you don't have to memorize anything. You'll read it all. Read it all out loud from your cards and shit. So, yeah. What I will share right now, since we're on the topic, is a debate case link from Google Docs. If you feel like looking at what a debate case looks like, you'll be able to look at this one and see. So let's see. What I'm going to share here. How about we share? What's a good UBI? Share UBI. UBIF case. That's a good one to share. All right. So I'm not gonna talk about this or anything, but I'll put the link there in case anybody wants to look at it. Might find it somewhat informative. And I do have a couple of videos about like how to debate and stuff. I probably make more. Somebody asked me for a basic intro to critical thinking video or something. Why is it unavailable at this time? Oh, now it's not unavailable anymore. Good. Okay, here's this thing. What does the school think about me not being prepared? I mean, schools don't worry about my level of preparation because the thing is, it's unlike most teaching that is done, debate coaching doesn't need to display busyness. It's an actual thing, right? It's different than a class because I'm not giving grades or anything. I'm mostly a private coach. My job is to get them to win, to at least do better than they're doing now. You should do a topic where you present a topic and we all try to come up with the best arguments. Okay, well, a fun topic to do is, this one always pisses people off. Here's a fact I'm going to tell you guys. And I bet most of you will disagree. Most of the 19 of you will disagree. McDonald's is perfectly healthy. It's not less healthy than any other food. Now, if you want to defeat that, you could make the best arguments against it. Or if you want to support that, you can make the best arguments for it. I'll try to stay out of the argument making department and just do the argument critiquing. So if we have anybody who's got any thoughts on McDonald's being healthy or unhealthy and wants to win their side of the argument, The affirmation says McDonald's is healthy. The negation says no, it's not. So I'm giving the neg side. The neg's easier, so it's easier in this case based on the fact that they're neg for the not healthy people to win, because they just have to negate they have to prevent the affirmative for affirming. They don't have to actually affirm the counter advocacy. So anyway, that's a topic. If anybody has thoughts on that, it's a topic I've argued on a few occasions in the past. It's funny how people just assume that McDonald's is unhealthy because a lot of people say that, but nobody really has any reasons to believe that, as far as I can tell. So there really isn't any reasons to think that McDonald's is any less healthy than any place else. And in fact, it's very much the case that you shouldn't believe anything that science really tells you about diet at all, because they keep going back and forth about shit, for one thing. So it seems unlikely that they're very reliable about diet in general. Second of all, diet's always individuated. What's the right diet for you is not something that can be determined as a general rule. Is specific to you. Sean Ryan Barron says, depends on what you order, of course, but an egg McMuffin, for example, uses a normal egg cooked on a grill, no different than at home. I would argue that it doesn't depend what you order, that everything there is healthy, and it's all equally healthy. But that's a good point. An egg McMuffin uses a normal egg cooked on a grill, no different than at home. That's a reason to believe that McDonald's is not any unhealthier than a breakfast you might cook at home, for example. Perfectly fine reason. Do you find your SE stronger than your FI? Me? Yeah, my SE is a lot stronger than my FI. I mean, FI is not... the word strong is weird, but my SE is plays a lot more of a significant role in my life than my FI does, for sure. In general, if my FI is playing a role, shit's going bad. I don't like to have to feel a lot of emotions, and it tires me out. When Kim and I fight, I get exhausted. If it gets me emotionally really engaged, then I'm just exhausted afterwards. I go to sleep, because emotions, it's like a poison in your body, basically, that you've got to excrete out some way. And if you don't, in a normal, good operating circumstances, you're basically not carrying around any emotion, because nothing that emotional is happening. And then sometimes the poison of tenderness fills your heart with the dampening agent that causes you to experience excessive moisture in your gut. And in those circumstances, you need to absorb or otherwise come into contact with significant drying agents to try to reduce the amount of wetness. Adderall helps. Adderall really suppresses your emotions, but you got to get enough sleep, or else it will end up actually causing more problems with your emotions. So, I mean, we would love someday to have a vaccination for emotions, so that we don't have to continue seeing generation after generation suffer under this plague. However, we don't have that yet, so we just have to process them in the old-fashioned way, by yelling at others. What do you think of cognitivetype.com and them typing you as FESI? I mean, cognitivetype.com, is that the microexpressions people, Vaultology people? I mean, look, here's one thing that almost works in their favor. The video they used to type me as an ESFJ was one of my most FE videos and one of my least TI. It was intentionally designed to be a video for beginners. And I was trying in that video to work on my FE or something. So in that sense, it kind of speaks well of them that at least they came to that conclusion on a video where I was behaving more ESFJ-ish than normal. However, that's the problem with micro expressions, right? And Baltology is that they didn't read me as NE because I was looking at the camera a lot. And when I'm looking at the camera a lot, it means I'm paying attention to my FE. I'm thinking, well, gosh, the audience probably would like to look at my eyes rather than the side of my nose all the time. And I bet I'd engage them more if I looked directly at them. So if I'm doing this, then Baltology is going to be wrong because look, he's not NEing at all. He's just FEing. You can see these FE things here and FE things there. Well, I'm not just FEing. I'm remembering to include some FE considerations during my NETI ramblings here. Meats that are cooked have a higher level of carcinogens that lead to cancer, according to the World Health Organization. Additionally, McDonald's food is high in sodium and fat and low in dietary fiber. Okay, well, meats that are cooked is not unique to McDonald's. So that's not a reason to think McDonald's is unhealthy. It's a reason to think meat eating is unhealthy. So we're trying to draw a distinction between McDonald's and other equivalencies, including food that people eat at home, not between meat eating and vegetarianism. So that point's not going to stand. The high in sodium, there's not a clear indication that sodium consumption has any health problems, and they keep going back and forth on it. Fat, scientists can't decide which kind of fat supposedly is bad and which kind is good. Personally, I need a lot of fat because I have very high metabolism. I get starving if I don't eat seriously fatty ass shit. So I don't think that's going to fly there. The low in dietary fiber thing, I mean, what comprises fiber? Like, you mean talking about like lettuce and stuff? Are you talking about roughage, things that help you go poop? Well, I mean, if you're not constipated, you don't need more fiber. So that's not unhealthy not to have a lot of fiber. It's just, if you're constipated, probably eat someplace else. What are your thoughts on personality types in animals, dogs, for example? I think they have types. I mean, I know it sounds silly. It doesn't mean I can substantiate exactly. I think all my animals have types. I think the cats have types. I think the dog has a type. Although I haven't typed the dog we have right now. But according to a YouTuber called Type Tips, he has a video saying that a foolproof way of proving one is an ENXP is to hold a pencil in front of their eyes. If you're a lead NE, it will hurt to hold your gaze. Well, I mean, that's talking like about looking at the camera. It doesn't hurt. It's just something you got to get used to a little bit of being in control of what your eyes are doing. Because as an NETI person, I mostly don't really want to look at the person I'm listening to or talking to. I'd rather not look at them because it's a lot of extra FE data that I don't want to process. I don't want to process your facial expressions. I don't want to process your gestures. I don't want to process any visual stuff. I just want to process your tone and the meaning of your words. And I can process both no problem in real time, auditory, as long as I'm not getting distracted periodically by dumb pieces of irrelevant data. So I prefer not to look at people, but people, some people really want eye contact. My ESFJ ex-wife was always freaking out if I didn't make eye contact when I was talking. It was fucking annoying. How do you differentiate types within a quadrant? For example, C.S. Joseph typed Kanye West as an ENTP, which I believe to be incorrect. I can see that he noticed a lot of TI. I think Kanye's ESFJ. Kanye West is an ENFJ. I'm quite confident of it. He's definitely not an ENTP. Kanye West is in no way, shape, and form an ENTP. Kanye West is clearly an NI user. He's an ENFJ. That's right, Ligad Kalfa. You're right about that. He's fucking totally ENFJ. That's what happens when an ENFJ actually gets to be as successful, like, gets people affirming them about their own bullshit too much. It's like all ENFJs think they're Jesus reborn to bring truth to the world. Most of them get rounded out by reality at some point. Kanye West is what happens when you pour gasoline on that fire. What a fucking clusterfuck conflagration of disastrous flames that guy is. You know, fan dogs. Easiest way to spot TI from FI. Check for self-checks. So when I was talking to this lady the other night, I gave her the problem that says there's a bag in it. It's got 3 red hats and 1 white hat. And there's 3 prisoners. Each prisoner puts on a blindfold. The third of the prisoners is blind, so he doesn't need a blindfold. The first 2 put blindfolds on. And then the warden of the prison says, here, each of you pull a hat out of this bag. 3 red hats in the bag, 1 white hat in the bag. And they go, okay, we pulled the hat. Put it on your head. It's a little teeny hat, so you can't see it. You can't see your own hat. Now take off your blindfolds. The non-blindfolded guys can see the other 2 guys' hats. But they can't see their own hat. And the warden tells them, if you tell me what color your hat is, either red or white, and you're correct, you go free. But if you're wrong, I'll instantly put you to death. Or you can decline to answer and just serve out your rest of your sentence as normal. So the prisoners go, okay, that's fair. And the warden goes, okay, first guy, here's your blindfolds off. You can look. Now, tell me what color is your hat. And he looks at the other 2 hats and he goes, I can't tell. Sorry. And the second guy goes, okay, now it's your turn to take off your blindfold. Now look around. You tell me, what color is your hat? The second guy goes, I don't know. And the warden says, well, if they can't get it, you're certainly not going to be able to get it, blind guy. I'll take off your blindfold, but you're blind, so you still can't say anything. But you want to answer that, just to be fair, I'll give you a chance too. Looking at your the other guy's hats, can you tell me what color hat you have on? And the blind guy says, I don't need to see their hats. I know what color hat I have on. And he tells the warden and he gets set free. The question is, what color hat did he have and how did he know? So this person I asked this question to, she, it was actually on a different question that I'm thinking about. But anyway, she was like, okay, the actual question was this one where it goes, Dan asks more questions than Bob, but fewer questions than Mary. And Steve asks more questions than Dan. And I saw her go, okay, so it must be Bob, Mary, Dan. Oh, wait, hold on. No, just because it's more doesn't mean it's right after. Okay, so I saw her check herself like that. The problem was set up so that if you weren't careful thinking about it, just because Bob has more than Dan, it doesn't mean that he has the next much more than Dan than anybody else. So if I have 1 and Bob has 2 and Mary has 3 and Steve has 4 and Joe has 5, well, Joe has more than Mary, but Joe's not right after Mary. There's somebody in between. So I watched her catch herself on that. So I initially jumped to the conclusion that she must be right after, and then just as quickly go, oh, wait, no, that's not right. I could see it in the both her talking it out to herself and the facial expression and everything. It was clear as day. That's TI. When you're constantly checking yourself to see if your conclusions are hasty, to see if they're consistent, to see if you've read it like that, oh, I realize now that just because she has more than that doesn't mean she's right next in line. So nix that notion. That's an example of a disinterested calculus as well, because if you've jumped to a conclusion about an answer for a second and you're emotionally attached to that answer and you're checking your emotion to see, well, do I want this answer to be right? Yeah, I sure do. Well, then you're not making a disinterested calculus about it. You're saying, I'm determined I want this to be right, so I'm going to assume it is and push through with it. Mike Cernovich. I don't know who Mike Cernovich is. Face Supreme says, yeah, I can't stand the ENFJs. It's like they're forcing the emotional reaction out of me instead of waiting for me to react naturally. Like the most inane story has to suddenly be the most impressive thing. Yeah, they're constantly trying to squeeze emotion out of people. They'll roll into a situation and like right away be like too much just so that then they can have an earnest moment where they talk about being too much and just like, ugh. No, that's the right accent for you, Face Supreme. I've decided this is your accent. My name is Face Supreme and I talk like this. Self-checks. In general, do you get along with people within the quarter? Yes. I like alpha quarter people. I like ESFJs, I like ISFJs, I like INTPs, I like ENTPs. I can hang out with alpha quarter people for long periods of time. I also like INFJs a lot. They're very alpha quadri. Here's my email address. And this is for anybody who wants to email me about anything, basically. If you want to buy a t-shirt, you can email me. If you want to make a video with me, you got an idea for a video, you want to make a video for your channel with me, you want to do my channel with me, that's fine. If you want to pay me to type you, I charge $100  75 minutes. If whatever you want to talk to me about, email me. Fine. I check my email every day, and I'm always looking for something interesting in my email. Most of it's boring. Most of it's just spam or like notifications from YouTube about comments and stuff. Sure. In which way do intelligence and creativity correlate? Not very well, Shelley, frankly. I wouldn't have answered this question this way until I worked with an ISTP. This ISTP student was a senior in high school. He got a perfect score on the ACT, which only maybe 2,000 kids in the country get out of millions and millions to take it. Probably, I don't know, maybe 10, 15, 20, 40 million people take it. I don't know, a lot of people take it, but very few get a perfect score. He did. He's an ISTP though. And if I had been talking to him and didn't know that his possible schools he's going to go to are all the hardest schools in the country to get into, like Harvard, Yale, MIT, Stanford. Those are the acceptable schools to him. Nothing else is even remotely accepted. So, very smart guy, obviously, or at least extremely good at school and extremely good at standardized tests, and could not think of more than one reason to invade Canada. Could not come up with anything on the fly to talk about himself and tell an interested interviewer. His mom was concerned. She hired me to teach him how to do interviews. Why was she concerned? Because if you talk to the guy, if you interviewed him, if you were a college interviewer and you interviewed him, you'd conclude he was a complete idiot. He had nothing interesting to say. He had no original ideas. He couldn't riff off anything. But he was still one of the best students in the country. That's why I'm saying intelligence and creativity don't correlate very well. Now, what people perceive as intelligence and creativity correlate very well. I'm perceived as a lot more intelligent than that ISTP. but by the empirics that we have, he's way more intelligent than me. I didn't get 4.1 GPA in high school, and I didn't get a perfect score on my standardized test. I got a 1270 on the SAT out of 1600. It's not that good. I did almost get a perfect score on the verbal section. I got like 4 questions wrong or something, 760, something like that. But I did pretty shitty on the math part because I don't remember all that shit. Like, what's the formula for minute? Fucking, I don't remember. Who cares? And that was my attitude. I didn't like the math part. It seemed long and boring and like it's giving me think a bunch. I don't like to use that much thinking. It's filled with polyunsaturated fats, which I guess are unstable and less healthy than saturated fats. Don't get me wrong, I shoved down my throat. I'm not sure what I believe I said, but what I tell you what I miss, trans fats. I want those trans fats back. Why'd they get rid of them? I loved them. Bad for thyroid. My thyroid thrives on unsaturated fat. So are Enneagram types a sort of subtype for the types? I think Enneagram types explain anything that needs additionally to be explained. And they don't conflict with cognitive functions, and they are somewhat consistent, and they talk about a different kind of thing, and it works well on top of each other. So I'm an ENTP 784. I like tri-types. I don't like type number with wing. I prefer tri-types. Do the coping mechanisms such can work concurrently with the functions and sort of model the way they are utilized? Yeah, well, the Enneagram stuff explains things that functions don't explain. Why is Kimberly so combative compared to most ISFJs? Because unlike most ISFJs, she's got 8 in either the first or second slot in her tri-type, probably the second. She's probably 6, 8, 4. Most ISFJs are 9s or maybe 1s, but not Kim, she's an 8. That explains her deviation from type descriptions easily enough. And if you look at the functions, you realize that it's not the type that makes somebody fighty or not fighty. It has a lot more to do with their life experience. I think Enneagram has more to do with your life experience and less to do with innate and unchanging things. I think you are likely to stick with your first number as your first number for your whole life. But I think your other numbers in tri-type can maybe have a little bit of move around. SPSOCSX, how do they fit into it all? Yeah, I was thinking about those today, actually. I personally am SXSPSOC. And the reason I realized that is I was thinking about a scenario like, I was thinking it was kind of a variation on the Polar Party. I don't know if any of you guys watched that video, but there's a video I put up just yesterday called Polar Party, where it's a game show where everybody's in their polar all the time, and you're the only person who's normal, and you kick them off one at a time every week until you're down to nobody, until you're down to the last one you kick off. And purportedly, it's a way to sort of get a sense of what people value or something. But where is it going with that? Oh yeah, what I was thinking about was like if I were put in a situation where it's kind of like a crazy situation where I've got to figure out how I'm gonna make shit go for me or whatever. My first thought is to actually SP, self-preserving. It's like I'd rather do it myself. I don't want to involve other people. I don't want to try to team up with other people, blah, blah, blah. But that's just because I'm thinking about it as though I were being sent there by myself. Ultimately, I'd rather be with a teammate, most of all, or a partner, than by myself. And last, what I'd like to be is relying on interfacing with the group. So that's, if you think about yourself in in a situation where it's like a game show like Survivor or something, right? Where except there's more real survival-y shit in there. Try to make it as kind of high stakes as you can without making it ridiculous in this thought experiment. And ask yourself, would you rather deal with that just by yourself with a specific partner, maybe not a sexual partner or relationship partner even, but you're thinking like, well, if I could have this guy as my teammate, I'd like me and him to be going into this as teammates, or that would be fine too. It still tells you you're SX rather than SP. If you really think, no, I bet the only way to make sure it's done the way I wanted to do it myself. That's SX. And okay, let me go see what else is happening here in the chat. You think some types of intelligence are superior to others? I mean, there's some I like more, but I don't think they're inherently superior or anything. What's the most reliable way to test your Enneagram? You just got to ask yourself, like, how do I prove my worth? Is it by helping, by achieving, or by being a rebel individualist of some sort? And that's 2, 3, or 4. And you ask yourself, what do I do with things that worry me, make me fret, or things I'm concerned or scared about coming up? Do I think it through very carefully to make sure I understand it perfectly? Do I build a nest and build up my defenses and not worry about what's out there that might do, but instead worry about what I can do regardless of what's out there? That's the nesting thing. Or do I play the day away and bury my head in the sand and pretend that the storm's not coming? Fiddle well, Rome burns. If that's 5, 6, 7. The first one's 5, second one's 6, second one's 7. And then the last question is simply, what do I do with conflict? Do I fight? Do I appease? Or do I withdraw? And that's 8, 9, 1. Okay. Contemporary creativity scientists assume that the constructs creativity and intelligence are very unlikely to not correlate. Well, okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that the way they measure intelligence, it's likely to incorporate some intuition, not just TI, deductive reasoning. And it's not going to incorporate very much the follow-through aspect of it. So one of the reasons why this ISTP was so successful is because he followed through on all the stuff he was supposed to do as indicated. And, he doesn't have great TE, maybe, not that super strong as ignoring, but he's got SE. And if he knows what the plan is, he's fine with his parents telling him what the plan is, then it just follow through on it. He's not going to come up with any new ideas, better ideas, right? So might as well just follow through on the plan. And if his parents are putting him on a plan to be one of the best students in the country, well, shows you what TISE can do, Oh, about the instincts and all. Why do INFPs suck so bad? INFPs don't suck so bad. I wouldn't argue it worse than like most grocery store food or whatever, though. It's not worse. Kind of an addictive style food as well, maybe too, but I don't find it addictive. I get sick of it if I eat too much. Since you would rather have a teammate, I would rather have a teammate. Which type would it be? I mean, I'd be with my ISFJ. It depends on what kind of competition it is. It's just sort of like every man for themselves trying not to die. I'd be with Kimberly and my family and try to save them and stuff, But if I were going to do a regular competition, I'd probably be best served to pick ESFJ. We're activity partners. We get a lot of shit done together, typically. Speaking of tri-types, what is your opinion on the 548? 548. I dated a 548 briefly, and she was a dark angel. A dark angel casting spells of looks, containing and conveying great emotions that said, I'm thinking hard about this. I'm pissed off. And I'm an individual. You go, you're kind of intense. You are pretty intense. You need a little 7 in this mix here, I'm afraid, my dear. Yeah, you're fretting, so you're thinking about what you're fretting about. Good. Except you're not using TI, you're using FI because you're an INFP. Because INFPs, they 5 too, but they 5 with FI. You're 4ing, that pretty much correlates with FI as well, but it can correlate with TI sometimes, presumably. So you're TI-FI and you're judging, you're stuck in your head a lot in terms of your enneagrams. And then when you come out of your head, you come out fist swinging. You are a challenge. Eye contact is scary. If you're making eye contact with somebody who's got laser eyes, you'll be blinded by the lasers. You won't be able to blink quickly enough. Lasers are too fast. They're faster than a cheetah. Is there a term for the interplay between top 2 functions? If not, what would you call that interplay? I'd call it your identity block. It's a block. That's what Socionics calls it. They call it ego block. If you're talking about what's the term to describe the interaction of the two, well, I don't have a term for it, but if I were going to come up with one, it would be some combination of deliberation and action, or some combination of interface and knowledge. Those things are paired with each other. So you'll never get as 1-2 deliberation and interface, or deliberation and knowledge. You'll always get deliberation and action, or action and deliberation. And if you have an interface or a knowledge, then it'll always be paired with interface and knowledge. So the reason for that is because of the equivalencies in deliberation that you get through those 2 different approaches. Judging is the most deliberative function. You spend the longest time to come to a conclusion. But once you come to that conclusion, presumably you can take action upon it for some stretch of time then without deliberating again. In contrast, the interface function, it acts, checks, knows, that's why it's paired with knowledge function, and then acts again. It's a adjust, check, know what it means, adjust, check, know what it means. It's that cycle with interface functions. So that's why it's always paired with knowledge. Now, interface function is less actiony than action, and knowledge is less deliberative than deliberation or judgment functions. So when you add them together, the equal is about the same, whether you've got action deliberation or knowledge interface. Interesting. What would an INTJ 548 be like in comparison to the INFP? Well, they'd probably use NI for their 5. I would not expect an INTJ to be a 548. I'd expect them to be more like a 458 or an 845. I wouldn't expect to see 5 first, because they'd be using their counter value or their absolute value. They could be living in there. They'd be using FI then, I guess. That's the thing. If they're 548, they'd be using FI 548. And so I guess the 4 would be expressive in projects of the self in some regard. I think a INTJ 548 is more likely to express themselves effectively through their projects, whereas INFP is more likely to faint at projects that don't ever realize. Good morning. I had to come see you before coffee. That says a lot. My nephew brother constantly asks me questions he already knows the answers to. Any ideas why? Just for the sake of hearing my answer the second time. I think he feels as though probably there's meanings there that aren't being conveyed by the words the first time he hears them. Because there's two different approaches to understanding language. TIFE sees primarily, usually, but especially T's. The T, this may be a T's thing, maybe TE above FI and TI above FE. But there are some people who think that what you mean is what the words mean. So what you say is what you mean. That's what I typically think. And there are other types of people who think that what you mean is what you mean, and what you say is an approximation of it that may or may not express what you mean. So you might hear people say a lot of times, well, I know I said that, but I didn't mean that. I meant something else. What you don't mean things, your words mean things, would typically be my response. If your words don't express, if your words express a specific meaning, then either articulate that you misspoke and what you misspoke about and why, like what you meant to say, or find a set of words that does express what you mean, or don't claim to have meaning unexpressed by words. That would typically be my response. But FI people think, no, words are never going to be adequate to really convey the meaning, because most of the important meaning in life is carried in the weight of introverted feeling. And that's, just generally speaking, not very communicable. You can't symbolize it effectively. You'll never quite get a handle on what is being talked about, because it's nature, and the core of everything that we know about it is experiential. There's no weed in here. I have to put another piece of weed in before I can smoke it. Do you have any introductory thoughts on functions and archetypes, since both connect in some ways back to core? Archetypes. Let me pull this bowl. Well, look, I think archetypes are a fun shorthand way of understanding, I guess, this manifestations of humans as they relate to other humans who also manifest some role, right? Like in this conversation here, I'm sure I'm fulfilling some archetypal role. I'm being a central figure who's dispensing words to people who are asking me questions. You could call it like the blowhard. I'm the archetype of the blowhard. So, okay, yeah, I am displaying, in some sense, I'm exemplifying, I guess you could say, some manner of role besides just my particular being. I'm both a representation of patterns and a unique animal self. So I'm always going to be playing some kind of a role in relation to some person or other persons. And those number of different roles that people have with one another are finite, because roles are not relationships. So like a personal relationship with another single other person is deeper and more involved than can exactly be summed up or communicated in an archetype or a symbol or something. However, in our roles that we play, like this role that I'm playing here, that is something that can be summed up by a symbol And that's where the appeal of archetypes comes from, because people like to think of themselves as being consistent um, across events, especially NI users. So, like, the reality is, whether or not I'm the central guy dispensing wisdom, dispensing words, being the blowhard, it really depends on the circumstances. It's not my archetype exactly, it's my role here. And so I think that's sort of the thing that misleads us a bit about archetypes, is that we sell ourselves short when we reduce ourselves to our roles, no matter how much those roles may tell us about some aspects of being human, being ourselves, and relating to other people. I just find it reductive in a way that makes them almost have as many harms as benefits as a rhetorical tool or something. So I'm a little hesitant about them, but I do get the appeal of, like, Socionics would call the ENTP Don Quixote, and I can absolutely recognize some of those qualities in me. I am running for president, for example. That's a pretty Don Quixote-esque thing to do. And I do tend to insist that my stories are more important than physicalities. And that's a fairly Don Quixote thing to do. But, of course, I have a lot more self-awareness than Don Quixote, the character. And beyond that, I'm a lot more than those elements of person. It does help us to understand others, to have a quick tag, shorthand means of summing up things, But people tend to mistake those shorthands for the things themselves and fixate on the archetypes instead of the realities of an individual moving through time paying attention. So I'm going to wrap it up here in the next 5 minutes or so. Just give everybody a heads up there. Been at it for a long time, 2 hours, 47 minutes. It's 7 a.m. I don't want to be on this when Kimberly wakes up. I'd rather go once I bathe and start doing some housework or something, so when she gets up, don't get a little bit of like, you've been up all night. Okay, let's see what else is going on here. Who has the best cognitive function definitions? Me or C.S. Joseph? I mean, obviously I do. At least pit me against somebody serious, like DSP is a lot more serious than C.S. Joseph. The answer would still be me, but it wouldn't be such a ridiculous question. I have a close ENTP friend who will have tons of enthusiastic interaction with me, then drops out of contact for a bit and shows up again. It's a pattern. Everybody's very ENTP. Why do they do this? Because, well, first of all, ENTPs incorrectly assume, but need to operate under the assumption that their relationships remain as they were when they left them for as long as they're away. So that nothing changes in the relationship. It may be a month till I see you again, but when I see you again, it's just exactly the same as before when we left off. We will pick up where we left off somehow. So that's one reason. The other reason is we're having fun with somebody else. We like to have fun with lots of people. It's like that lady Emily came over the other night and we had a lot of fun. And at some point soon enough, somebody else will call me up and be like, hey, I want to come over and make a video with you or hang out or whatever. I'll be like, come on over. Well, I mean, I can't very well have Emily come over every night because that would preclude me from having other people come over. And so I do have people I like, and I try to keep touch base with them, but I also rely on them making some of that touching base happen if they want it. I'm a pretty sensitive ENTP too, overall, but I'm still just like your friend. um, it's not about you. That's the thing. It's not about you at all. He or she might think you're super important, but forget that to other people, that means frequency of contact, not just intensity of contact. I mean, INFP, I'd fear abandonment and loss of interest, especially before I read it seems to be how his mind works and understand the functions behind the behavior. We're polar FI. We don't know our relationships through the weight of their value to us. We may understand it intellectually. We don't experience it that way. We're not focused on our attachments to people or things. We're focused on our attachments to experiences, really, like this. I'm attached to this. I'm attached to answering these questions. I don't know who you are. I'm not attached to you, obviously, because I never heard of you before or met you or anything. But even if I had, and we talked to each other frequently, I'm sure have a great time every time I'm with you, but I wouldn't think that's about, I'd just be like, well, that's just what good people do. It's like they have good times with each other. And then when they're done with that, they go have good times with somebody else and whatever. The only thing that I feel loyal about is a sexual partner. I'm very loyal in that department. I'm not going to cheat, and I'm not interested in playing the field either. So, I'm very settled down relationshipy. But when it comes to friendships, nobody should rely on me to keep in touch. I will eventually, you know, but all the friendships that I have that are solid and good and everything is because nobody's sensitive like that. I don't know what other word to use there. You're INFP, ENTPs can have a hard time assessing the relationships they have and assume status quo will not be changed even if he isn't after all. Yes, that's exactly what we assume. Well, I didn't do anything since I last saw you. How could our relationship have soured? Exactly. You didn't do a goddamn thing. I know. So what are you upset about? Well, I expected you to do something. Like what? I don't know. Call me? You didn't tell me to call you. You can call me. That's what you get from him, huh, INFP? You're like, fuck this guy. He doesn't get it at all. You're right. He doesn't get it at all. The thing is, we do occasionally get it. I get it sometimes when I remember the day. This is how rarely it happens, but I remember the day. I was sleepy waking and I was feeling fussy and whatever else. And what I really wanted was Kimberly to come spend some time with me. And she kept doing other things, little tasks and shit. And I was getting frustrated and being like, and feeling like if she really cared about me, she'd come spend time with me, and feeling all moist and stuff, right? And then it struck me, oh my God, this is what Kimberly feels all the time. This shit, this like expectation of another person because of your feelings. And maybe a lot more sympathetic to her, frankly. I realize now it's like, you can't just be like, look, Kim, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm busy. I got shit to do. You got to respect the fact that sometimes, and I've never unreasonable about the whole thing or anything, but you got to understand that sometimes a person doesn't have a reason to want to spend time with you in that fashion. They would want you to give them your attention. They they're feeling emotionally like they want that and they need that right now. So, she's a woman. Obviously, I should make sure that I meet her emotional needs to the extent that I can, and yada, yada, yada. INTPs, someone picking up with that. INTPs do put more effort in the upkeep of a relationship once it's solidified. They're slower to get into one. They want to make sure that, well, they're ideally with an ESFJ because they want a lot of reassurance and a lot of affirmation. ESFJs will give you that. ESFJs will give you blowjobs on demand. They're good women. Voice impersonations of each type, huh? Okay. I'm going to start with the ENTP. Okay, let's start with the ENTP. Here's a bunch of ideas about some stupid ass shit nobody cares about. All right, let me do the other ones. ENTP is boring because I do ENTP all the time. Just being naturally me. INTP. You say that with a lot of certainty, but there's no way you can really prove that. The truth you say is truth. It breaks apart when you touch it. I don't even want to go into why. Well, because I'm still sitting here. I'm playing RuneScape. Well, I got RuneScape on one screen and Call of Duty on the other. I'm not playing Call of Duty right now. Right now I'm talking to you. Well, I'm sorry. You keep telling me it's true, but it just falls apart. I just touch it with a little bit of argument, it falls apart. So I'm just going to sit here and stew in my nihilism for a while. Yeah, there's nothing true. That's why I'm playing RuneScape. That's true. That's INTP. And let's see what else we got. ISFP. You know what? I am never doing again ass to mouth. I will never forget the taste. That's ISFP. Let me do INFP. Well, I really think I'd like to be a veterinarian because I really like animals, but I also have a lot of creative ideas I kind of want to be a poet because I write poetry about animals, but also not about animals sometimes. And it's like, if I pursue poetry, then I'll have to give up my dream of being a painter. And I haven't really painted yet, but when I close my eyes and I picture something, I think that is precious to me. And so, anyway, I've been thinking about it for a good 6 or 7 months now, and I'm getting closer. I'm getting closer to deciding. I think yesterday I almost started a poem. Almost. I had it like the first 2 lines written in my head. I've forgotten them now, but I didn't want to commit to that because then I would indicate I didn't really care about my music. That's INFP. Now ENFP. Yeah, can I have the roasted lamb with the organic Brussels sprouts, please, and a glass of this border. Actually, just give us the bottle. Yeah, the $65 one. Yeah. And can he make my with egg whites? Okay, anyway, as I was saying, capitalism is just their way of keeping poor people down. We've got to raise taxes on the wealthy. Are you buying this dinner? No, you're paying. You know this is a business, right? It's not that kind of business. The kind of business I'm talking about are corporations, okay? Corporations are bad. They are evil. They try to take the money from poor people. They're exploiting the poor people. What do you see when you go to Target? What do you see? A bunch of products everywhere. They're traps. They're poverty traps. Poverty traps is what they are. What the fuck are you talking about? Karl Marx was right. And so was Mao Zedong. They were both right. They understood that it's these dominant elites who are taking there's only so much money in the country, and they split it up and they give almost all of it to these dominant elites and they give almost none of it to the rest of us. It's not fair. That's the NFP. That's from the date I went on. This is the date I went over the NFP. INTJ. Okay. I ended up going to grad school at UC Santa Barbara. Oh, really? What do you do there? I'm taking a course of study in computer science. Oh, shocking. What kind of computer science are you doing? Well, I'm actually working on a project right now for my instructor, Dr. Lazislow, and what we're doing is compressing within image files. Are you familiar with how databases work? Sort of. What are you trying to get at? Well, it's very difficult to hide a piece of information within the body of code that is compressed. You know how image files are compressed by cutting out some sections of code that are then rebuilt later in the decompression process. Well, in that decompression process, you can insert hidden messages. Hidden messages. Oh, okay. Well, what kind of messages are you trying to hide in images? It doesn't matter. You can hide anything. Oh. Okay. Thanks, INTJ. That's my best off the cuff INTJ. ENTJ. Okay, listen, guys. We can take a long time to type people if we want to, but you don't need to. We just have to establish two things. Are they this or this? If this, then you already know right then they're in this column. How do we know this? My mentor taught me a long time ago about the archetypes. My mentor learned from a number of sources, maybe from BB himself, but my mentor is an expert, and he informed me of the singular truth, which now I am giving to you to help you live better. Guys, first of all, remember, the core framework that everybody is engaged in all the time is goal setting and goal meeting. You might not know it, but you are. We all are. Everybody is, and it's the most important thing. So guys, listen, my mentor taught me that there are 2 sides to the mind on the left and 4 sides to the mind on the right, plus 2 sides under the chin for a total of 8 sides. These represent the cognitive functions. Guys, listen, if you are currently in your INTJ shadow, then what you need to do is find your ENTJ witch and pair her up with your ISFP hero. Now, the witch hero pairing will cause you to switch over into an ESFJ counter witch, which then will evolve into a dragon. When the dragon and the witch get together, they combust, and that's how you become a meta type like me, where I've incorporated all the functions. I've mastered them all. I've practiced them. Cognitive functions are skills you have. Cognitive functions are attributes you have. And that's why you have to master them. Because since we know about them, now we must set goals about them. You need to set goals. I need to set goals. Everybody has to set goals, okay? If you're not setting goals, what's your goal need to be? Set some goals. You need to have a goal and set goals before you can ever set goals. Everybody knows this. That's ENTJ. ESFP. Blah, 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 blah. That's ESFP. INFJ. So, you look like you spend a lot of energy working on this. Tell me a little bit about it. It's just me asking a bunch of questions that are sure to make the person happy to answer them. Let me ask you more questions about you. I'm an INFJ. Something was wrong with me. I was briefly an ESFP. I don't think you're an ESFP anymore, LJ. I think you're something else. I don't know what you are, but I don't think you're an ESFP. Being an ESFP and having a stroke are more or less the same thing. Let's see, what other types did I need to do? I did ESFP, I did ISFP, I did ENTP, INTP, I did INTJ, I did ENTJ, I did ESTJ. Son? Yeah, Dad. Son, can you come over here, please? Yeah. All right, so let's, first of all, get in there, pop the hood. Okay, it's popped. All right, come over here. Now, I've got a rag here. Do you have a rag? No. All right, why don't you go get a rag? Okay, I'm back with the rag. What are we doing? I want to show you the proper way to check your oil because, first of all, you need to check this. Now, we've got you this car. You're 17 years old, and this is going to be a good way for you to demonstrate that you understand what it means to take care of something that matters because you don't take care of your things. Okay, Dad, just check the oil. Right, gotcha. Do you know how to check the oil? You pull the stick out, right? And it's not that simple, Eric. That's not the way you do it. If you want to get the wrong reading, you do it that way. Now, look, let's pull this thing out. Okay, now look at it. Are you ready to check it? Yeah, I see. There's oil. No, wipe it off. Stick it back in. Pull it out. Wipe it off. Stick it back in. Pull it out. Now look at it. That's the only way you can be sure to get a clean reading on it. If you don't do that, son, you're not going to get an accurate reading. Okay, Dad. Do you want to try it? Sure. Put it in. Put it in. Put it in. It's fine. Okay, well, that's pretty poor effort there. You just checked it. Why do I need to check it 5 seconds later? That's ESTJ. ESTP. I'll do ESTP chick, I guess. Hey, got any blow? Want to have sex? It'll be fun. Come on. You scare me. I know. I scare a lot of guys. And what's my last one? ISTP. I've got an argument here. I'm going to say it. Here it is, in full. I'm going to make the whole point. Now I'm done. Don't talk to me about it anymore. But I've got some concerns about what you just said. We're done talking about it. I made my point. Goodbye. Close the door behind me. That's ISTP. And ISTJ. Look what I have. It's pretty cool, huh? Yeah, it's cool. You got a container there with your bong in it and all your little tools that you use with your bong, your ladders and all your little things, each with their own little place and their own little Velcro attachments that you have made there for it. That is pretty cool. Yep, I use it every time. Every time I come over here, I use the same thing. Buenos dias, hostamos Tayloros. You came in at the tail end of this. I did ESTP female this time. Yeah, I just did her. I didn't do a male. Uh-oh. Matthew, that was just an example. I don't talk to other people besides you. Okay. Right. Different. I've got a different grinder for my gas. I don't want you guys using my grinder. You come over. I'm not using your bong. Why not? It's filthy. I can't believe you let it get that filthy. Well, Cameron, it works. Does it really need to be that clean? Yeah. I don't eat those. No, my stomach gets. You don't eat potatoes. No. Because they upset your stomach. Well, I do have irritable bowel syndrome. When did this new dietary thing of yours happen, Cameron? About a week ago. I decided I was going to stop eating potatoes. Oh. Do you still not eat gluten? No, I started eating gluten again. Oh, okay. Well, good luck with your no potatoes plan. That's ISTJ. Oh my God. They're funny, ISTJs. Hilarious. All right. I'm going to wrap it up. This is a long-ass live stream. It's just 3 hours and 11 minutes and 30 seconds. Thanks for being here, everybody. Forgetto natto to eat plenty of chizo.